Chapter 11:25. Name: Yi Chen. Rank: Major Commander. Killed 2,430 enemies. 1 Commander, 6 Major Commanders, 18 Minor Commanders, 66 Centurions, 420 high-grade soldiers, 735 middle-grade soldiers, and 1,184 low-grade soldiers. Kill 2 Commanders, 11 Major Generals, 29 Minor Generals, 109 Centurions, 710 high-ranking soldiers, 1,200 middle-ranking soldiers, and 1,919 low-ranking soldiers. You may be promoted to Commander. Military contribution points: 2,083 million. Individual contribution points: 5 stars. Average contribution points: 5 stars. Yi Chen's battle record could be said to be perfect, but the entire team's battle record was somewhat terrible. The team had 50,000 people, but they had lost 26,885 people, and killed 31,200 enemies. If the team had a small number of people, they could allow the number of enemies killed to be less than the number of losses. However, if the team had a large number of people, it was not allowed, not to mention 50,000 people. Under normal circumstances, for a team of 50,000 people, losing more than 5,000 people was considered a lot. Controlling the losses to be below 3,000 was considered excellent. Of course, if they encountered an enemy team of 50,000 people, it would be an exception. In such circumstances, losing 20 to 30,000 people was normal. No matter what, the Snow Air Emperor was the commander of this team. Losing so many soldiers, she would inevitably have to bear some responsibility. As for what responsibility, Yi Chen did not know. The commander badge was purple, noble and domineering. Right now, Yi Chen had 3 badges, 1 for a low-grade soldier, 1 for a major commander, and 1 for a commander, all of which belonged to him. Golden Armor Planet's Master City, Golden Armor City. I'm sorry, but you need to become a purple gold commander or general to be able to purchase an Emperor-grade battleship. A middle-aged king wearing a major commander badge on his right chest said with regret. Below Emperor-grade battleship, one could purchase it as long as one had enough source stones. However, Emperor-grade battleships were controlled products, and source stones were not enough. One's military rank also needed to be high enough. Strictly speaking, only generals had the qualifications to purchase them. Purple gold commanders were an exception. After all, there were only about 50 purple gold commanders in the entire human race. How can I become a purple gold commander? Yi Chen asked. You only need to leave a mark on the Emperor Scar Steel to become a purple gold commander. Emperor Scar Steel. Yi Chen was not unfamiliar with this thing. Elysium had an Emperor Scar Steel, but Elysium's Emperor Scar Steel was far inferior to the real Emperor Scar Steel. Before leaving Elysium, Yi Chen was able to leave a mark on it. Under the guidance of several staff members, Yi Chen arrived at the Emperor Scar Steel testing area. You have 3 chances. As long as you can leave a mark on the Emperor Scar Steel once, you can become a noble purple gold commander. Your treatment won't be any weaker than that of a general. In terms of prestige, a purple gold commander wouldn't be inferior to a general. Another female lieutenant said, Purple gold commanders are divided into 5 stars. The lowest is a 1-star purple gold commander, followed by 2 stars, 3 stars, 4 stars, and the highest is a 5-star purple gold commander. Although no matter what commander you are, your military rank is the same, and you can't tell from your appearance, there is still a big difference in treatment. For example, a 1-star purple gold commander can only buy the lowest quality Emperor-grade warship, and it will be a small one. A 2-star purple gold commander can buy a slightly better quality small and medium Emperor-grade warship. As for a 3-star purple gold commander, there is no restriction. As long as you have enough source stones, you can buy any Emperor-grade warship. And Yi Chen nodded. The other party had said so much because the higher the status, the better the treatment. In terms of military rank, an ordinary commander would be the same as a purple-gold commander. A 1-star purple-gold commander would also be the same as a 5-star purple-gold commander. However, the treatment would be different. If one wanted to obtain better treatment, they would have to fight for these unseen honors. Start the test. We will judge your purple-gold commander rank according to the depth of the mark. There were 3 major lieutenants and 5 minor lieutenants watching from the side. Nodding his head, Yi Chen looked at the 3 meters tall Emperor Scar steel. Without using the 3 flowers borrowing Dao, Yi Chen pulled out the dragon spring sword and slashed at the Emperor Scar steel with the true Inferno sword. Puff! Bang! 2 sounds came from the Emperor's Scar steel. One was the clear impact and the other was the back impact. What a strong back impact! One of the lieutenants looked at the mark. The mark was scorched black and it was 2.9 inches deep. 2-star. 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 Everyone reported their data. Do we still want to continue the test? Yi Chen's current data was 2 stars. In other words, Yi Chen was already a 2-star purple-gold commander. He was only missing a purple-gold commander badge. Let's try again. This time, Yi Chen used the 3 flowers borrowing Dao. The powerful essence, Qi, and Soul doubled his battle power. The Emperor's Scar steel didn't have any restrictions. Battle secret techniques were also a part of one's strength. In comparison, the selfless Emperor realm increased one's battle power even more. In this aspect, Yi Chen was at a disadvantage. Raising the dragon spring sword high, Yi Chen slashed at the Emperor's Scar steel. Puff! An intense sword Qi slashed at the Emperor's Scar steel. That trace of black made one's heart palpitate. The mark is 3.5 inches deep, 3 stars. 3 stars. 3 stars. Congratulations! Among the 50 purple-gold rank commanders, there are only 5 3-star purple-gold rank commanders, including you. Yi Chen's strength made them understand that this person's future would be glorious. After all, he had such strength even before reaching life and death realm. Once he reached life and death realm, he would be invincible within the same realm. No, he would be able to surpass realms to battle. The purple-gold commander badge was purple-gold in color and had a star pattern on it. 1 star represented a 1-star purple-gold commander, and 3 stars represented a 3-star purple-gold commander. The place where the army bought warship. May I ask what kind of Emperor-grade warship you need? A large one, Yi Chen said. The most ordinary large Emperor-grade warship is worth 300 million yuan stones. Since you're a 3 stars purple-gold commander, you can pay half first. The remaining half can be paid in installments. If you pay in 100 years, you'll need to pay 2 million per year. If you pay in 500 years, you'll need to pay 700,000 per year. If you pay in 1,000 years, you'll need to pay 500,000 per year. Paying in installments was very disadvantageous for the buyer. If you pay in 100 years, half of it would be 150 million, and the remaining 100 years would be 250 million, a total of 350 million, an extra 50 million. If you pay in 500 years, 150 million plus 350 million would be 550 million, an extra 250 million. If you pay in 1,000 years, 150 million plus 550 million would be 650 million, an extra 350 million. Of course, the army also had to bear a huge risk. After all, if you died, these yuan stones would be wasted. But seriously speaking, there were very few people who could afford an Emperor-grade warship. Even the most ordinary small Emperor-grade warship would cost 30 million yuan stones. How could an ordinary person have so much wealth? Even an ordinary general might not have it, not to mention a large Emperor-grade warship with 300 million and above. There were not many people who could afford it. If not for the unexpected yuan stone pond, Yi Chen would have to struggle for decades or even centuries to obtain such wealth. Don't worry about it. I'll pay in one go, but I want the best large Emperor-grade warship. If he wanted to buy, he would buy the best. Chapter 11:26. One-time payment? The best large Emperor-grade battleship? The other party was inwardly shocked at Yi Chen's wealth. In fact, the fact that Yi Chen could pay 150 million yuan stones was already shocking enough. It should be known that even the future successor of a first-grade or second-grade faction wouldn't have several hundred million yuan stones, unless they were an 8th-layer life and death expert. However, Yi Chen was only a 3-star purple-gold commander. There aren't many peak large Emperor-grade battleship. Their price is between 500 million and 600 million yuan stones. There was no such thing as the best. Peak Emperor-grade battleships had their own advantages. The more expensive one was not necessarily the best. Perhaps one wouldn't like this advantage. Take me to see it, Yi Chen said. All right. The other party nodded and led Yi Chen into the interior of the building. The interior of the building was extremely spacious, exceeding 20 li in length and width. Hundreds of Emperor-grade battleships were parked here. The outer perimeter was filled with small battleships, the middle was filled with medium battleships, and the core was filled with large battleships, numbering only 30 in total. The Golden Armored Star has a total of 33 large Emperor-grade warships, and 4 of them are the best of the best. This one is called the Golden Cutlass, and its material is equivalent to a high-grade defensive artifact. It is indestructible and can easily penetrate through a non-life planet with a diameter of several 100,000 li. Its defensive barrier can withstand the continuous attacks of a mid-grade combat emperor, and is worth 500 million yuan stones. The Rottenwood warship is slightly inferior to the Golden Cutlass, but its defensive barrier is very strong and can withstand the continuous attacks of a high-grade combat emperor, and is worth 520 million yuan stones. The Shadowless warship has a weaker defensive barrier, but it can conceal itself and is hard to detect with just one soul power, and is worth 550 million yuan stones. The Dijiang-class warship is not inferior to the Golden Cutlass, and its defensive barrier is better than the Rottenwood warship. The other party introduced the 4 peak Emperor-grade battleships one by one. Can I buy 2 of them? Yi Chen took a fancy to the Dijiang battleship, but he also felt that the Shadowless battleship was very interesting. Sorry, I can't do that. Purchasing an Emperor-grade battleship will be recorded. Each person can only buy 1 large Emperor-grade battleship. So it's like that. In that case, pick a peak small Emperor-grade battleship for me. Usually, when there were few people or traveling alone, it was more convenient to use a small Emperor-grade battleship. In any case, small Emperor-grade battleships weren't worth that many yuan stones. All right. The other party nodded and led the way. He was no longer surprised. Yi Chen had already spent 600 million source stones. Why would he care about a few million source stones? In his opinion, Yi Chen should have found a treasure trove in the starry skies. He had so much wealth that he had nowhere to go. Seeing how Yi Chen could easily spend 600 to 700 million source stones, Yi Chen's wealth should have exceeded 1 billion. The small Emperor-ranked battleship that Yi Chen had chosen was called Phantom Shadow, and it was worth 70 million primal stones. Its defensive barrier could withstand continuous attacks from high-level combat emperors. Other than being 100 times smaller, it was not much worse than Dijianghao. The treatment of a 3-star purple-gold commander wasn't just about being able to purchase an Emperor-class battleship. The greatest treatment was that one could fulfill the requirements of a city lord. In fact, a 1-star purple-gold commander could fulfill the requirements. In other words, Yi Chen, who had become a 3-star purple-gold commander, could become a city lord on one of the 4 major life star domains. A city lord was not only an honor, but also a symbol of wealth. The annual tax revenue of a city was quite astonishing. As long as one became a city lord, one could obtain a large amount of source stones without doing anything. Apart from this, the city lord position could also be inherited. After the death of the first city lord, his descendant or a designated person would inherit the position. Within 10,000 years, no one would have the right to take back the city. However, after 10,000 years, if no one could become a purple gold commander or reach the 7th layer of life and death realm, the city would be confiscated. For example, the current city lord of Blue Leaf City was the Blue Leaf clan's patriarch, and this city lord position was inherited by him. It had been several thousand years, and there were still 5,000 to 6,000 years before the deadline. During this time, as long as Lan Xian could reach the 7th layer of life and death realm, she could inherit the city lord position and become the city lord of Blue Leaf City. A Life Stars city had 2 grades, Ordinary City and Main City. On the other hand, Life Stars had 10 grades, from lowest to highest grade, Grade 1 Life Star, Grade 2 Life Star, and Grade 9 Life Star. Firebird Star was a Grade 2 Life Star. The treatment of a 3-star purple gold commander was that he could choose any main city on a Grade 3 Life Star as his territory. Of course, one could not just casually own a city. To become the city lord of a Grade 3 Life Star's main city, Yi Chen first had to pay 300 million source stones to the upper echelons. He didn't have to pay it all at once and could pay it in installments. Then, every year, 30% of the tax would go to the upper echelons, and the remaining 70% would go to him. However, this was a huge temptation for anyone. After all, even if one didn't think for oneself, one had to think for one's descendants. With a city, even if one's descendants didn't live up to expectations, they would still be able to enjoy glory for 10,000 years. Yi Chen didn't have much interest in the position of city lord, but he knew the importance of a city. With a city, it would be much easier for the Falling Dust Sword sect to take root in the 4 major life star field. They could definitely become one of the overlords of this life star field. There are a total of 702 level 3 life-bearing planets in the 4 major life-bearing starfield. There are 7,200 main cities and 1,345 empty city lords. There are 350 in the Azure Dragon starfield, 380 in the White Tiger starfield, 320 in the Vermilion Bird starfield, and 295 in the Black Tortoise starfield. Which starfield do you want to choose? At the City Lord's registration office, a female king with a commander badge on her right chest asked. The Vermilion Bird starfield. Yi Chen thought for a while and replied. Since you are a 3-star purple gold commander, you can choose the best grade 3 life star and the best main city. I have listed 10 of the best main cities for you. You can choose any one of them as your territory. A 3-star purple gold commander was too honorable, even more honorable than a 3-star general. After all, in the entire human race, there were only 5 3-star purple gold commanders, but 3-star generals were far more than that. Yi Chen looked through the list. These 10 main cities were indeed very good. Not only were the grade 3 life stars large, but they also had a high population. Their taxes were also the highest among all the main cities. In the end, Yi Chen chose Fiery Flower City. Fiery Flower City was one of the main cities of the Vermilion Bird Starfield's Flame Starfield. Its annual tax revenue was as high as 5 million yuan stones, and the main city's population was 2 billion. Of course, Fiery Flower City wasn't just a city. The surrounding several million li were all part of Fiery Flower City's territory. These several million li radius included many ordinary cities, towns, and small towns. With Fiery Flower City, Yi Chen could appoint his own people as the city lord of the surrounding cities, as well as the town mayor. If the Flame Star Field was a kingdom, then Yi Chen was a warlord. If the Flame Star Field was a continent, then Yi Chen was the emperor of a country, possessing immense power. In short, from now on, Yi Chen could be considered to have his own foundation, no longer a rootless duckweed. Chapter 11:27. After paying 300 million yuan stones in one go, Yi Chen obtained a City Lord's Command token. This token itself was a Heavenly King grade weapon, and was hard to destroy. It was useless to Yi Chen, but after Yi Chen's death, it would be the only proof for Yi Chen's descendants to inherit the city lord's position. Losing it would be very troublesome. With the token, Yi Chen officially became the city lord of Flame City. The upper echelons of the human race would come to collect taxes once every 100 years. Doing it once a year was too troublesome. Flame Star was located in the southeast of Vermilion Bird Starfield. It was a red planet with a diameter of 45 million li. There weren't many places suitable for human habitation on Flame Star, occupying less than 20% of the planet's surface area. However, it was rich in metal and fire attribute energy ores. Every day, many puppet battleships would come to transport metal and energy ores. Flame Star had 2 continents suitable for human habitation: the southern hemisphere's Fire Cloud continent and the northern hemisphere's Fire Crystal continent. Fire Cloud continent had 4 main cities, while Fire Crystal continent had 5. Yi Chen's Flame City was on Fire Crystal continent. As one of the main cities, Flame Flower City was shrouded in countless arrays and restrictions. These arrays and restrictions were extremely ancient, having existed for more than 10 million years. Every year, the consumption of yuan stones to maintain the arrays was estimated to be in the tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands. Of course, Flame City's annual tax revenue was around 5 million yuan stones. Adding other income, it shouldn't be a problem to raise 7 to 8 million yuan stones. The cost of maintaining the arrays was only a fraction of the total. After all, the arrays could automatically absorb the yuan qi of the heaven and earth. The Flame City Lord Mansion occupied a vast area, like a city within a city. In a luxurious courtyard of the mansion, the acting city lord, Iron Water King, was in a good mood. He smiled evilly at the beautiful woman in front of him, unable to move. This beautiful woman was also a king, and her cultivation base was not low. She had reached the 5th heavenly layer of life and death realm. Logically speaking, 5th heavenly layer life and death realm experts were already at the level of great expert. However, at this moment, she was unable to move, as if under some kind of restriction. Rose King, you didn't expect to fall into my hands, did you? Iron King looked at the hot body of the Rose King, and his eyes flashed with passion. Of course, the most attractive thing about the Rose King was her temperament, which was more important than her appearance and body. It should be known that on Flame Star, the Rose King was undoubtedly the most beautiful king, and she was also the leader of the Rose family. Iron Water King, you despicable bastard. My Rose family is a big family in the Flame Star. Aren't you afraid that your ugly behavior will be spread out and made the whole world laugh at you? Rose King's face was full of anger. Iron Water King had wanted to make her his woman many years ago, but she had not agreed to it. Unexpectedly, Iron Water King had sent the Scarlet Fire Gang's 4 protectors to capture her. How lawless! This is a world where only the strong are respected. No one will choose to oppose me for your sake. In any case, I'm the substitute city lord of Flame City. Who would dare to do anything to me? As for you, I suspect that you've killed people in Flame Flower City. Now, I'm going to interrogate you. Iron Water King's family had once been glorious. Flame City had been passed down by the old ancestor. However, ever since the death of the old ancestor, a 7th layer life and death king hadn't appeared in the family for 10,000 years. Since there were a lot of empty main cities, and they couldn't lack management, the upper echelons of the human race allowed Iron Water King to become the substitute city lord of Flame Flower City. Only when the real city lord took office would he abdicate. By now, Iron Water King had been the city lord of Flame Flower City for decades. Although Flame Flower City's taxes had nothing to do with the acting city lord, besides taxes, there were countless places to earn primordial stones. The 4 great families, 3 great sects, and 2 great gangs of Flame Flower City would give him a lot of primordial stones every year. Adding his own family's business, It was not an exaggeration to say that his annual income was no less than 3 million primordial stones. In the entire Flame Flower City, Iron Water King's family could be said to cover the sky with one hand. Which of the 9 great powers didn't have to pay attention to his mood? He only needed to tell the Scarlet Fire Gang's leader that he was interested in Rose King, and the gang's leader immediately dispatched 4 protectors to secretly capture Rose King. You're only a substitute city lord. One day, someone will come and replace you. At that time, your family will also turn into ashes. How could Rose King not know that this was a world where only the strong were respected? She had already accepted her fate. However, one day she would take revenge. My nephew is currently breaking through to the 7th layer of life and death realm. Once he succeeds, this Flame Flower City will belong to my family once again. As for someone coming to replace me, I'm not afraid. My family has been passed down from my ancestor. He knows a lot of old friends, and the descendants of his old friends are also many experts. If the new city lord is a bit more obedient, he might be able to keep his position. Otherwise, he won't be able to bear the consequences. Iron Water King wasn't worried about his family in the slightest. There were many titled monarchs who were on good terms with his family. Although they weren't on Flame Star, he could still send someone to warn the other party. So this is Flame Flower City. It's flourishing indeed. Walking on the incomparably spacious street and watching the stream of people coming and going, even with his tranquil state of mind, he couldn't help but feel a ripple in his heart. From today onwards, Sparkle City's 2 billion population, as well as the tens of billions in Inferno Flower City's territory, were all under his control. He was the king here, and the rules were up to him. With Falling Dust Sword sect taking root here, he wouldn't have to worry about its future development. Of course, Yi Chen would set up a sect rule to prevent people of other sects from causing a ruckus here. In the end, this is a world where the weak are prey to the strong. Yi Chen sighed with emotion. If he weren't a 3-star purple gold commander, he wouldn't have been valued by the upper echelons of human race, and he wouldn't have the power to decide the life and death of several billion people. And I've arrived at the City Lord's mansion. Yi Chen arrived at the entrance of the mansion and stopped. This is the City Lord's mansion. Why haven't you left yet? The guards of the mansion ignored the fact that Yi Chen was a 5th-layer life and death expert and furiously shouted. Yi Chen sneered and took out the City Lord's command token. I'm Flame City's City Lord starting today. Flame City's City Lord? The guards were a bit confused. Didn't Flame City already have a City Lord? How could they know that Iron Water King was only a substitute City Lord? Wait here, I'll go in and inform them. Iron Water King and his family's prestige was too deep, so the guards still didn't dare to let Yi Chen in. No need to go through so much trouble. Yi Chen waved his hand and 2 rows of guards fell to the ground. Yi Chen walked straight in. Who dares to cause trouble in the City Lord's mansion? Do you want to die? The City Lord's mansion was huge. Yi Chen had only walked a few thousand meters when he was surrounded by a group of Iron Water King family's experts. The whole mansion was the Iron Water King family's lair. Yi Chen looked around and took out the City Lord's command token. City Lord's command token. The Iron Water King family's people all knew that Iron Water King was the substitute City Lord, not the real City Lord. So it's the new City Lord. My apologies, I was disrespectful just now. A person who seemed to be in charge of the Iron Water King family walked over with a smile and cupped his fist. Yi Chen said indifferently, "Where's the substitute City Lord?" "The substitute City Lord is busy. Why don't you come back in a few months? You shouldn't be in a hurry, right?" the person said with a smile. Chapter 11:28. Yi Chen raised his eyebrows. These people had been abusing themselves for so long that they couldn't even tell who was the master and who was the commoner. He didn't bother to be polite and said coldly, "Unrelated people, get out of the City Lord's mansion. Anyone who disobeys will be killed on the spot." Don't make life difficult for yourself. He had already found the substitute city lord's location. He was indeed working. This isn't appropriate. The man's brows creased and his face turned gloomy. Pung! Yi Chen clenched his left hand into a fist and punched the opponent's body. The powerful fist energy superimposed twice, double stacked. Spurting out blood, this man was also a fifth-layer life and death realm existence. However, in front of Yi Chen, he wasn't even as good as a chick. His vision blurred, and the next moment, his chest felt like it had been struck by lightning. His body involuntarily flew out of the mansion and landed heavily on the street. One more word and all of you leave. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. Yi Chen's eyes swept over the rest. He wasn't joking with these people. If they really didn't listen to his orders, then there was no harm in killing them. Go! Seeing Yi Chen attack without the slightest frown, these people knew that he was not a pushover. If they continued to defy him, they would most likely be killed. Swish! His figure flickered, and Yi Chen instantly arrived at Iron Water King's luxurious courtyard. Who's there? Sensing someone's arrival, Iron Water King promptly turned around. You're the substitute city lord? Yi Chen asked. Letting go of Rose King, Iron Water King tidied up his clothes and slowly turned around. Squinting his eyes, he said, Who are you? What business do you have with me? Taking out the city lord's token, Yi Chen said, You don't need me to say much, right? Iron Water King's face turned extremely ugly. There were so many empty cities, so why did the other party choose Fiery Flower City? Moreover, he had taken up the position so quickly. Once he lost the status of substitute city lord, he would no longer be able to shake the world like before. Most importantly, his clan's annual income would sharply decline. Name your price. I can pay you a large sum of primordial stones as long as you give up Sparkle City and choose another main city, the Iron Water King said in a low voice. Yi Chen smiled. No need. I like it here. Aren't you going to consider it? Source stones are not a problem. Of course, don't take me for a fool. Coupled with the reign of the great ancestor, the Taishui King family had been in Inferno Flower City for 70 to 80,000 years. The wealth accumulated over the past 70 to 80,000 years was amazing. Not tens of billions but billions. Of course, his bottom line was 500 million. Anything more than that was out of the question. I don't lack primal stones, so there's no need to think about it. Alright, you can leave the city lord's mansion now. Remember, bring all of your people out. I don't keep any random people here. Yi Chen said without hesitation. A trace of anger flashed in the Iron Water King's eyes, but a smile appeared on his face. I was just joking. It is my honor and my family's honor that you chose Fiery Flower City. However, you are new here, so it must be very difficult for you to manage such a big city. If you don't mind, I can help you. In his opinion, Yi Chen should not have time to manage a city. With him, the family would not suffer any loss, and he could still shake the world. It was like killing two birds with one stone. In the end, he could save a large sum of primordial stones. Don't listen to him. His family has colluded with the 9 forces and made a lot of exorbitant taxes to divide the benefits of the people of Fiery Flower City. The people here are angry but dare not say anything. Many small families have even decided to move out of Fiery Flower City. The Rose King looked very embarrassed. His shirt was torn in half, exposing a white towering breast with a bright red tip. Shut up! The Iron Water King shouted. You can leave now. Yi Chen did not intend to keep the Iron Water King. If a new regime was to be born, the old regime must be destroyed, just like the change of dynasties in ancient times. Therefore, keeping the Iron Water King and his family was equivalent to blinding his eyes, so that he could not see what was happening in Fiery Flower City. Okay, I will leave. The Iron Water King looked calm. He reached out to grab the Rose King and take her out of the city lord residence. It is you who will leave, not her. She is mine. The Iron Water King suppressed his anger. Everything in the city lord residence is mine. You are already in the past. Don't go too far. The Iron Water King's eyes turned red. It seems that you really think you are something. The sword light flashed, and the Iron Water King's head flew high. The powerful destruction sword intent combined with the strands of sword chi destroyed the Iron Water King's vitality and the soul imprint in his flesh. His face was full of disbelief. After all, he was the acting city lord, and the opponent had killed him directly. He thought that his foundation was powerful enough and should be taken seriously. However, he had forgotten one thing. This world was a world where the strong ruled, and the weak were prey to the strong. In Flame Flower City, Yi Chen was a powerful warrior, and he was merely a weakling. Perhaps he was very powerful in front of others. I am not willing. The Iron Water King's voice stopped. You killed him? The Rose King looked at Yi Chen with a bit of fear. I have killed a lot of people. He is just one of them. Yi Chen did not put the Iron Water King in his eyes. If he killed him, then so be it. He could only blame the other for not knowing when to stop. His eyes scanned the Rose King's body. Soon Yi Chen found a Zhen Yuan lock on the Rose King's body. It was this lock that had locked the Rose King's Zhen Yuan. Puff! With a point of his finger, the Zhen Yuan lock was broken. The Rose King stood up and hurriedly put on a new set of clothes to cover his half-naked body. Thank you. Taking a deep breath, the Rose King thanked him. You are from this planet? Yi Chen asked. The Rose King said, Yes, my family is in Fiery Flame City. It can be considered the #1 family here. Fiery Flame City seems to be under my jurisdiction? The Flame Flower City, as well as the 5 million miles around it, were all under his jurisdiction. The Star Fire City was one of the 21 normal cities in the Flame Flower City. There were 2 continents and 9 main cities in the whole Flame Flower City, with each main city managing 10 to 20 normal cities. Of course, some of the normal cities were independent cities that were not under the control of any main city. Those were the cities that were built later. Most of the 1-star and 2-star generals did not have the same treatment as the purple gold rank commanders, so they could only choose the independent normal cities as their own territories. The 3-star purple gold rank commanders had the same treatment as the 5-star generals. My name is Zhuzime. I wonder what the city lord's name is? The Rose King felt that the opportunity was right in front of her. She planned to build a good relationship with Yi Chen, no matter what, to prepare for the future of her family. Yi Chen. Yi Chen did not wait for the other to speak. My family will move to Fiery Flame City after a while. If you don't mind, you can help me manage Fiery Flame City. I don't mind. It would be my honor. The Rose King was very excited. Chapter 11:29. City Lord, Zhao family has deep roots in the city. They have hundreds of life and death kings, and Iron Water King's nephew is already a commander. Rumor has it that he's breaking through to the 7th layer. Moreover, Zhao family has a close relationship with many powerful families of other planet. A few years ago, several titled monarchs visited Zhao family as guests. Their relationship seems to be not ordinary. You killing Iron Water King will bring you a lot of trouble. Iron Water King was surnamed Zhao, and he was the patriarch of Zhao family. Rose King felt the need to warn Yi Chen, lest he become too passive. Trouble? Yi Chen shook his head indifferently. Without reaching his realm, one simply couldn't understand the gap between a 3-star purple gold commander and an ordinary king. Take Iron Water King as an example. Yi Chen was at the 5th layer while his opponent was at the 6th layer. However, Yi Chen's battle strength was at least 1,000 times higher than his. His opponent's martial skills were probably hovering between the 1st and 2nd layer, while Yi Chen already had 3 peak 3rd layer sword art. If Yi Chen wanted to kill, he could completely annihilate the entire Zhao family in a short period of time. It was only a matter of whether he wanted to or not. As for titled monarchs, they were indeed not a small threat. However, for Yi Chen, they were merely a threat. He didn't believe that Zhao family could invite an eighth-layer life and death monarch. If they could invite such a monarch, they could completely protect Sparkle City, and the current situation wouldn't have happened. Not every seventh-layer life and death monarch had the strength of Snow Air Emperor. The majority of them were ordinary monarchs, equivalent to low-level or mid-level battle emperors. It was true that the Rose King did not know how strong a 3-star purple gold rank commander was. The difference between them was too big, so big that it could not be accurately estimated. It was just like how a newborn baby would not know how strong an adult was. In their eyes, all adults were very strong. Seeing that Yi Chen didn't seem to care, Rose King felt somewhat relieved. Since he didn't care, he must have something to rely on. City Lord, you've just arrived, so the city guards and Sparkle Army certainly don't know you. I feel that we should gather the middle and high-level officers of the two armies in a short period of time. The Rose King suggested. Yi Chen nodded. There were two large armies in Sparkle City. One was the City Guard and the other was the Sparkle Army. The City Guards were responsible for patrolling the main city, maintaining the order and prosperity of the main city. There were 1,000,000 of them, consisting of Life and Death Realm Warriors, Sea of Souls Realm Warriors, and Astral Reaching Realm Warriors. Astral Reaching Realm Warriors were the most common soldiers, while Sea of Souls Realm Warriors were the lowest-level military officers, such as team leaders, squad leaders, and team leaders. Life and Death Realm Warriors were the middle and high-level military officers, such as team leaders, captains, and commanders. The Spark Army was responsible for patrolling the entire Flame Flower City. There were more than 10,000,000 of them, and they were also composed of Life and Death Realm Warriors, Sea of Souls Realm Warriors, and Astral Reaching Realm Warriors. The City Guard branch captains were in charge of 20 soldiers, the squad captains were in charge of 100 soldiers, the platoon captains were in charge of 500 soldiers, the senior captains were in charge of 2,000 soldiers, the branch captains were in charge of 10,000 soldiers, the colonels were in charge of 50,000 soldiers, and the major captains were in charge of the entire city guard. The Sparkle Army had 10 commanders, one of whom was the overall commander. Each commander was in charge of a region. Of course, the city guards weren't limited to the main city guards. There were also city guards from ordinary cities within the borders. However, there was no need to summon these city guards for the time being. In a large manor on the west side of Flame Flower City, the upper echelons of the Zhao family were sitting in the meeting hall. An old man sat in the main seat. Everyone, I think you already know the reason for summoning you here. Right now, what we need to consider is how to stabilize the Zhao family's position. The old man was the previous patriarch of the Zhao family, Iron Leg King, and Iron Water King was his grandson. Old patriarch, this new city master might not necessarily want to attack our Zhao family, right? Aren't we worrying a bit groundless? The one speaking was Iron Leg King's great-grandson, Zhao Fu. In the cosmos, apart from the first 3 generations, there was no such thing as intimacy. After all, Life and Death Kings could live for 100,000 years. Even if it was 1 generation per 1,000 years, there should be 100 generations. In terms of seniority, they could be considered dead, but there was no need. Zhao Fu directly addressed Iron Leg King as Old Patriarch, and not Great Ancestor. Patriarch has been killed. Do you think this new city master won't attack our Zhao family? The middle-aged man beside Zhao Fu coldly snorted. Zhao Fu shook his head. Patriarch has been acting city master for dozens of years. He can't let go of his identity. As far as I'm concerned, he brought this upon himself. To be able to assume the position of city master of a third-grade life planet is not something our Zhao family can contend with. If we can't keep our identity straight, the new city master will naturally be dissatisfied. Therefore, I think Zhao family has to endure. We can't let the new city master think that our Zhao family is a scourge. Otherwise, our Zhao family will truly be finished. Iron Leg King nodded. Zhao Fu was right. The city master of a main city was indeed not something their Zhao family could contend with. Although their Zhao family had a good relationship with many powerful families, and some of these families had titled monarchs, interfering with Flame Flower City with external forces was a bad idea. The new city master was not a soft persimmon. To be able to become the city master of a main city, one had to rely on strength. Zhao Fu is right. It is not wise to go against the new city master. Zhao Meng didn't keep his identity straight, so he deserved to die. The old patriarch had many grandsons. Iron Water King Zhao Meng was only one of them. He would not be too sad. Even if he was sad, he had to look at the big picture and not risk his family's future. But our Zhao family has been in Flame Flower City for 70 to 80,000 years. Our roots are very deep. The arrival of the new city master will definitely affect our Zhao family's foundation. There is no doubt about this. How to protect our Zhao family's benefits, or even a large part of our benefits, is our biggest problem right now. Flame Flower City was equivalent to the Zhao family's base. Only here could the Zhao family earn 3 million yuan stones a year. If they moved to another planet, they might not even earn 100,000 yuan stones a year. As long as they could stay in Flame Flower City, even if their annual income was reduced by 1 or 2 times, the old patriarch would be very satisfied. He was only afraid that the new city master would deprive them of their future benefits. Zhao Fu thought for a while and said, "Old patriarch, I think we shouldn't be too idealistic. The arrival of the new city master will definitely break the current situation. In other words, it is impossible for our Zhao family to maintain our current position. After so many years, our Zhao family has accumulated a lot of wealth. Why don't we slowly develop on other planets and look for opportunities? Wait until Uncle Yang reaches the 7th sky of life and death realm and becomes a 1-star general. At that time, our Zhao family will be able to make a comeback on a rank 1 life planet. A 1-star general could obtain a main city on a rank 1 life planet as their territory. No need to go through so much trouble. Flame Flower City will still belong to our Zhao family." Right at this moment, a young man walked into the meeting hall. "Yang you've reached the 7th sky of life and death realm?" The old patriarch's eyes shone brightly. He was at the peak of the 6th sky of life and death realm, but as soon as the young man walked in, he felt a frightening pressure. Indeed. Zhao Yang nodded. He was indeed the nephew Iron Water King had mentioned. Chapter 1130. Great, our Zhao family finally has a second titled monarch. The old patriarch, the Iron Leg King, laughed heartily with an excited expression. The other members of the Zhao family were also very excited. Their previous depression had been swept away. One had to know that although there were many titled monarchs in the universe, there weren't many of them. If a family could have a titled monarch, then that family would truly be considered a high-class family and would be famous for 100,000 years. On the other hand, it would only be a large local family. What a pity, the Iron Leg King said regretfully. If only it had been a little earlier. If Zhao Yang had become a titled monarch earlier, the Zhao family would have continued to inherit Sparkle City. That's right. It's very difficult to obtain Sparkle City now. Zhao Fu knew how high the status of the new city lord was. In the human army, only 3-star purple gold commanders or 5-star generals had the right to own a rank 3 life planet's main city. In other words, Yi Chen was either a 3-star purple gold commander or a 5-star general. However, generals had to be titled monarchs. Since Yi Chen wasn't a monarch, he was naturally a 3-star purple gold commander. You can only gain by giving up. We can offer 1 billion yuan stones and let him choose a new main city. Zhao Yang said. 1 billion yuan stones is too much. Even if we obtain Sparkle City, it will take us many years to earn 1 billion yuan stones. That's right, too much. I think 500 million is enough. We just need to let him choose a new main city. The discussion in the conference hall became louder. Most of them objected. Hearing the discussions, Zhao Yang sneered. If you can't even give up 1 billion yuan stones, how can you even talk about owning Sparkle City? I'm over 3,000 years old this year. After inheriting the position of Sparkle City Lord, I'll have been here for nearly 100,000 years. Everyone should know how much wealth I can accumulate in 100,000 years. In theory, occupying a rank 3 life planet's main city could accumulate several 100 billion yuan stones in 100,000 years. Of course, this was only in theory. For example, an ordinary person could earn a lot in their lifetime, but their savings were pitifully small. The distribution of the clan's wealth, nurturing the younger generation, purchasing all sorts of secret arts, dealing with unexpected situations, issuing exploration missions, befriending sovereigns, all of these required essence stones. For a clan with a level 3 life planet's main city, it was already very exaggerated for it to accumulate 100 billion essence stones over 100,000 years. Normally, it would only be several tens of billions. The stronger one was, the more essence stones they would need. The old ancestor of the Zhao family offended too many people. After he died, his enemies all wanted to take revenge on the Zhao family. The Zhao family had to spend half of the family's wealth to settle these matters. Therefore, the Zhao family's wealth was a little less, but it was still around 10 billion. 1 billion wasn't a small amount. What if 1 billion is not enough? Zhao Fu frowned. 5 billion then. Zhao Yang's bottom line was no more than 2 billion. Everyone had their own bottom line. His bottom line was 4 times that of Iron Water King. No, what I mean is that the other party might not care about the benefits in front of them. You have to know that most of the empty main cities don't seem to have city lords, but they are all occupied by large clans. If every clan wants to use essence stones to make the other party compromise, then it will be very difficult for the other party to choose a satisfactory main city. Moreover, the upper echelons of the human race will not allow them to go back on their word again and again. Zhao Fu could see this more clearly than anyone else. Zhao Yang was silent for a moment, then he raised his head and said, "Anyway, Spark City must belong to our Zhao family." Spark City Lord Residence. The high-ranking officers of the City Guard Army arrived first. Following them, the high-ranking officers of the Spark Army also arrived in groups of 2s and 3s. At this moment, the City Lord Residence's meeting hall was overcrowded. Fortunately, this hall was large enough that nearly 1,000 people could sit inside without feeling cramped. With the new City Lord taking office, the Zhao family will probably be purged. The one who spoke was the commander of the 7th Army of the Spark Army. The 9th Army commander nodded slowly. Among the high-ranking officers of the City Guard Army and the Spark Army, the Zhao family occupies 20 to 30%. The new City Lord will not allow the Zhao family to monopolize the city. The Spark Army had a total of 10 commanders. However, apart from the 7th and 9th armies, the other 8 commanders were all life and death kings of the Zhao family or close to the Zhao family. The fact that the 2 of them could become commanders was actually the Zhao family's superficial effort. As for the City Guard Army, it was naturally under the Zhao family's control. I hope this purge won't be too big. The 9th Army commander continued. He cherished the position of commander very much. The City Guard Army and the Spark Army had a salary. Ordinary soldiers received upper-grade spirit stones, basic officers received supreme-grade spirit stones, and middle and high-ranking officers received yuan stones. The annual salary of the Spark Army's branch officer was 300 yuan stones, the captain 1,000 yuan stones, the captain 3,000 yuan stones, and the commander 10,000 yuan stones. It did not seem like a lot, but there was basically no danger to their lives. They didn't need to explore or join the human army. As life and death kings, their lifespans were extremely long. After 10,000 years, the commander's position would definitely allow them to accumulate a net worth of tens of millions. Not to mention, at their position, the additional income was not small, and they could often make a small fortune. Once they lost this position, they could only wander around like other life and death kings or join the human army. Perhaps they could make a fortune for a while, but the risk was too high, and they could easily lose their lives. Of course, to become a commander, one had to first reach the 6th layer of life and death realm. Footsteps echoed as Yi Chen walked in from the side door of the hall. Behind him was Rose King. City Lord. Everybody in the hall stood up. Sweeping his gaze over everybody, Yi Chen waved his hand, indicating for everybody to sit down. Those who didn't come are all relieved of their duties. Yi Chen said to Rose King. Yes. Rose King's current status was that of a vice city lord. Everybody in the hall was startled, inwardly rejoicing that they had arrived quickly. Glancing at Rose King, Yi Chen said, "From now on, Rose King is the vice city lord of Spark Flower City. Seeing her is the same as seeing me. For those who disobey, I advise you to leave right now. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences. Rest assured, City Lord. We will certainly follow your orders." Everybody was clear that by climbing on the high branch of City Lord, Rose King and her family could be said to have skyrocketed. Who would dare to be disrespectful to Rose King? As for City Lord's means, they didn't doubt it at all. Before coming, they had already received the news that Spark Flower City's former City Lord, Zhao Clan's patriarch, Iron Water King, had been killed on the spot for disrespecting City Lord. They didn't think that their necks were tougher than Iron Water King's. Clearing his throat, the Rose King looked at the crowd and said, "The commander of the 4th Corps of the Spark Army, the 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th, 7th, and 9th captains of the 4th Corps are all dismissed. The commander of the 6th Corps, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 6th, 8th, and 9th captains of the 6th Corps are all dismissed." Spark Flower Army and City Guard Army had a total of 11 commanders. 4 of them had come, but at this moment, 2 of them had been dismissed. There were also a large number of captains, colonels, and branch captains. The 7th Army's commanders' brows twitched. The 2 dismissed commanders were the upper echelons of Scarlet Fire Gang and Sky Fire Gang. Among the 9 factions, these 2 gangs were undoubtedly Zhao Clan's lackeys. Chapter 1131. I can't accept this. We didn't do anything wrong. Why are you dismissing us? The 4th Army's commander was a big man with sideburns. People called him Copper Hammer King. He stood up and glared at Rose King. The 6th Army's commander, Flying Feather King, looked at Yi Chen. "City Lord, did I and Copper Hammer King do anything wrong?" Yi Chen said indifferently, "No." "Then why did you dismiss us? Is it because we're from Scarlet Fire Gang and Flying Fire Gang?" "Right. City Lord's actions are hard to convince the masses. I hope City Lord can retract his order. From now on, my Flying Fire Gang and Scarlet Fire Gang will wholeheartedly support you," Flying Feather King said loudly. Yi Chen coldly glanced at him. "You mean that if I don't retract my order, Flying Fire Gang and Scarlet Fire Gang won't wholeheartedly support me? That's good too. In that case, there's no need for them to exist. The 9 great powers of Sparkle City are indeed a bit too much. It's time to eliminate 1 or 2. Hearing these words, Flying Feather King's complexion turned incomparably pale. He didn't expect that his words would bring a huge disaster to Flying Fire Gang and Scarlet Fire Gang. He promptly said, "City Lord, I spoke without thinking just now. I hope you can forgive me. Flying Fire Gang and Scarlet Fire Gang will never have second thought." At this time, he no longer dared to talk about Yi Chen retracting his order. If the latter wanted to annihilate Flying Fire Gang and Scarlet Fire Gang, it would be as easy as crushing an ant. That's for the best. Go back and tell your gang leader that if you want to survive in Sparkle City, don't do anything out of line. If I catch you, you'll have to bear the consequences. He didn't mind annihilating Flying Fire Gang and Scarlet Fire Gang, but he needed a reason. Otherwise, recklessly annihilating other gangs would put everyone in danger. Yes, Flying Feather King and Copper Hammer King didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Next, Rose King dismissed many more people. These people were all life and death kings close to Zhao family. Originally, they were hidden very deeply, and ordinary people didn't know about them. However, they couldn't hide it from Rose King and her family. In the end, among the 1,300 and 400 high-ranking officers, apart from the 200 life and death kings of the Zhao family, more than 400 were relieved of their duties. It could be said to be a huge layoff. Fortunately, there were a lot of life and death realm warriors on the planet. As long as the news was sent out, there would definitely be thousands of life and death realm warriors fighting for these positions. After all, this was an iron rice bowl. If he missed this opportunity, he wouldn't get another one. City Lord, Zhao Yang of the Zhao family requests an audience. The next day, a guest arrived at the gate of the City Lord's mansion. The person who came in to report was the captain of the guard. Zhao Yang? Who is he? Yi Chen asked. Zhao Yang is the #1 expert of Zhao family. He's more than 3,000 years old this year. It's said that he reached the peak of life and death 6th layer 2,000 years ago, and even defeated a titled monarch. People call him Scorching Sun King. Invite him in. Yi Chen nodded. Soon, Zhao Yang arrived at the meeting hall. Zhao Yang was a tall young man who looked to be in his 30s. He raised his head and looked at Yi Chen, who was sitting at the head of the hall, and said, "I'm the new patriarch of the Zhao family, Zhao Yang. I've come this time to discuss the matter of the Inferno Flower City. Don't be in a hurry to refuse. I've come with sincerity." "All right then, tell me your sincerity." Yi Chen, on the other hand, wanted to hear the other party's sincerity. Zhao Yang's brows twitched. 1 billion. As long as you give up the Inferno Flower City and choose another main city as your territory, my Zhao family can give you 1 billion yuan stones in one go. Moreover, from now on, you'll be a friend of my Zhao family. This won't be a loss for you, but a huge profit instead. I believe that there should be a few third-grade life planets that are not inferior to the Inferno Flower City. 1 billion, indeed a big sum. Yi Chen faintly smiled. For ordinary life and death kings, 1 million yuan stones was already enough for them to not have to struggle with their lives on the line. After all, not everyone had high potential. For the majority of life and death kings, no matter how hard they tried, they could only linger around the 2nd or 3rd layer. 10 million yuan stones could support the development of a 4th-grade family. 100 million yuan stones could make a 3rd-grade family flourish. As for 1 billion, many people didn't even dare to think about it. Have you thought it through? Zhao Yang carefully observed Yi Chen's expression, hoping to find some clues. To tell you the truth, I don't lack yuan stones. Yi Chen didn't waver in the slightest. Faintly creasing his brows, Zhao Yang said, "In this world, everything has its value. It's just a matter of how high or low it is. I believe that in your heart, the Inferno Flower City is not priceless." Indeed, the Inferno Flower City is not priceless in my heart, but your Zhao family cannot afford it. 2 billion. Zhao Yang still didn't give up. 10 billion, and the Inferno Flower City belongs to your Zhao family. Yi Chen didn't believe that the Zhao family would be willing to pay 10 billion. If they were truly willing, he would consider it. 10 billion. Even though Zhao Yang had already prepared his heart, he was still startled by Yi Chen's huge appetite. 10 billion was equivalent to the entire wealth of the Zhao family. Not to mention the other members of the family, even he himself wouldn't agree. Who knew how many years it would take for the Zhao family to earn back 10 billion, and what kind of difficulties they would encounter during this period of time? Zhao Yang didn't get angry but instead smiled. "You really know how to joke. I can't accept 10 billion. It's ridiculous. As far as I'm concerned, the position of Inferno Flower City Lord is worth 10 billion. Inferno Flower Planet was a very special life planet. There were very few places suitable for human habitation, less than 20% of the planet. Although the other places were not suitable for human habitation, they were the most valuable places on the planet. Inexhaustible metal ores, fire-attributed energy stones, and fire-attributed spirit grasses were all treasures. In simpler terms, the value of a capital city of Inferno Flower Planet was not inferior to a capital city of a fifth-grade life planet. Zhao Yang's expression gradually turned gloomy. Sucking in a deep breath, he slowly said, "Since you can obtain Inferno Flower City, it means that you're a 3-star purple gold commander. How about this, if I can win one move against you by luck, can you consider my condition?" As long as he won, Zhao Yang didn't believe that Yi Chen would still have the face to stay in Inferno Flower City. Win one move against me? How could Yi Chen not see that Zhao Yang had already entered the 7th layer of life and death realm? He was no longer the Burning Sun King, but the Burning Sun Emperor. Having just entered the 7th layer, he was certainly full of confidence. There's no need to go through so much trouble. As long as you can block one move of mine without falling into a disadvantageous position, there's no harm in giving you Inferno Flower City. Yi Chen said. All right, it's a deal. A prideful expression flickered in Zhao Yang's eyes. He didn't expect that Yi Chen would be so easily provoked. In fact, he didn't have the slightest bit of confidence in winning against Yi Chen. But now, things were much easier. Not to mention not falling into a disadvantageous position in one move, he could even win 10 moves without falling into a disadvantageous position. Make your move. Zhao Yang's Zhen Yuan erupted. His entire body seemed like a human-shaped sun, emitting boundless radiance. Chapter 1132. Before entering the 7th sky of life and death realm, Zhao Yang was known as the Burning Sun King. He was proficient in the Yang Profound, Fire Profound, and Earth Profound. According to these 3 profounds, he had created 2 extreme rank 2 martial arts, Burning Sun Palm and Lava Exploding Fist. Although they couldn't compare to those geniuses, they were still quite good. The reason why he was so confident was not only because of his realm advantage, but also because he had created a 3rd-rank martial art, Sky-Dominating Sun Fist. Back then, it was precisely this fist that had allowed him to defeat a titled monarch. Take my sun-splitting palm first. Zhao Yang's right hand emitted boundless light and heat, as if it was condensed from light. He sucked in a deep breath and threw a palm attack at Yi Chen. As this palm attack was thrown out, the entire hall became dark. It was as if it was not a human's palm, but a real sun as it shot toward Yi Chen. A titled monarch is a titled monarch after all. An Ata realm had 3 stages, and titled monarchs had surpassed the 3rd stage by condensing the monarch's mark. Strictly speaking, titled monarchs had already turned the Ata realm into their instinct. When they attacked, they would be at their peak state. Combined with their 7th sky of life and death realm Zhen Yuan, their battle power would reach an extremely frightening level. Not daring to be careless, Yi Chen instantly entered the Ata realm and slashed out with his sword. Puff! The blazing palm energy dissipated, and light specks danced in the air. It's my turn. Block this sword, and the Flame Flower City will be yours. Holding the dragon's spring sword with one hand, Yi Chen raised it high and stared at Zhao Yang. Come! Zhao Yang's eyes flickered with intense confidence. His right arm started to burn fiercely like a piece of red-hot iron. Drops of lava dripped down with sizzling sounds. The extreme sky tyrannical sun fist was different from ordinary martial arts. The unique aspect of this martial art was that once it accumulated power, the entire arm would transform into energy. It could expand and shrink at will. This way, the attack power would be more concentrated, and there would be less wastage. As soon as Zhao Yang finished speaking, Yi Chen's attack came. If Zhao Yang's sun-splitting palm was the sun, then Yi Chen's Sun Essence Extreme could be called a white dwarf. Its power was more restrained, but it was 100 times more terrifying. The dazzling sword qi almost reached Zhao Yang in a flash. Break! Zhao Yang's right arm swelled up like the fist of a deity, striking towards the radiant sword qi. Boom! The entire city lord's mansion shook violently. The full power of 2 combat emperors was enough to destroy an ordinary planet with a diameter of a few 100,000 miles. Although the destructive power would be reduced by 1,000 times on a planet with life, it was still not to be underestimated. Under normal circumstances, it would be enough to turn a radius of a few 100 miles into a doomsday scene. Of course, as the heart of Sparkle City, the City Lord's mansion was covered in countless formations and restrictions. After destroying some of the formations, most of the energy was absorbed and converted into energy for the formation to operate. The remaining energy that could not be absorbed was crazily released through the door of the meeting hall, spewing out a dazzling pillar of light. Not good. Zhao Yang's expression changed immediately. This sword attack of Yi Chen's had reached a level of extreme yang, and could destroy anything. Although his sky-piercing tyrannical sun fist was also extremely tyrannical, it paled in comparison to this sword attack. He could not block it at all. Boom! The light exploded in a fan shape, and Zhao Yang spat out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying into the sky by the light pillar. On his body, a set light appeared. Obviously, Zhao Yang also had a low-level Heavenly King set. They were both low-level Heavenly King set, but Zhao Yang's defense was more than 10 times that of Yi Chen's. After all, their cultivation bases were 2 levels apart. Even if Yi Chen's Zhen Yuan was closer to the Sword Yuan level, which was much purer than an ordinary life and death 4th level Zhen Yuan, it would still be hard to imagine. On the other hand, if Zhao Yang did not have a low-level Heavenly King set, he would have died under this sword. The destructive power of the Sun Essence Extreme was hard to imagine without experiencing it personally. After tumbling dozens of meters in the sky, Zhao Yang finally stabilized his body. His face was ashen as he stared at Yi Chen below. With a cold snort, he turned around and left. My cultivation base is still a bit too low. Yi Chen realized that he had underestimated Zhao Yang. The latter's 3rd revolution martial skill, sky-piercing tyrannical sun fist, was hundreds of times weaker than his 3rd revolution peak sword skill, Sun Essence Extreme. However, when the two had exchanged blows just now, Yi Chen was only a few times stronger than his opponent. In other words, his opponent's cultivation base was at least 100 times stronger than Yi Chen's. Although the higher one's martial skills progressed, the more frightening their destructive power would be. Every tiny bit of improvement would be 10 times stronger. 3rd revolution martial skills and peak 3rd revolution martial skills would have a difference of 100 times, and 4th revolution martial skills would have a difference of 1,000 times. However, correspondingly, the higher one's cultivation base was, the slower one's progress would be. 3rd revolution peak sword skill was Yi Chen's limit, and it would be a long time before his sword arts would have a big improvement. Therefore, he could only focus on other aspects. The gap of 2 realms was not a small one. It was too big. Of course, 7th life and death realm Zhen Yuan was not 100 times stronger than 5th life and death realm Zhen Yuan. It was mainly because of the Emperor's mark. Therefore, Yi Chen had to either increase his cultivation base or reach an Atar realm. The former would take too long, but the latter could continue to improve. Time to return to God Paradise. Yi Chen had the intention to leave. As the deputy city lord, Rose King was very competent. In a short week, she had filled in the gap of high-ranking officers of the Flame Flower Army and City Guard. Although many of them were from the Rose family, it didn't arouse Yi Chen's disgust. Nepotism was very important in consolidating one's position. She was Yi Chen's trusted aide at the moment, so nurturing her own family was not a bad thing. After settling everything, Yi Chen left Planet Flame. Returning to God Paradise, Yi Chen immediately entered the Time Tower. The first 3 postures of Hidden Dragon's secret art were Golden Rooster seeking Tao, parting clouds and suddenly turning head. The fourth posture was called heaven and earth interweaving. This posture was related to the yin and yang within the body. When yin and yang combined, Taiji would be born. One day in the Time Tower was 100 days in the outside world. Yi Chen had learned heaven and earth interweaving, and he felt the hidden potential in his body surging like a tide. The fifth posture of Hidden Dragon's secret art was flower pinching instant. This posture was very difficult. It was about the combination of movement and stillness, and it even involved the principles of the universe. However, in terms of stimulating potential, it was a step further. At that moment, Yi Chen felt that the only thing left in the world was his flower-pinching hand. Everything else had disappeared. As for the sixth posture, it was a checkpoint. As long as he learned this posture, Yi Chen could be considered to have entered the palace of Hidden Dragon's secret art and excavated the true mystery of the Hidden Dragon's secret art. Hidden Dragon rises from the abyss. This was the name of the sixth posture. Crackle, crackle. Popping sounds came from Yi Chen's body continuously. The sounds extended from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. The motionless Yi Chen closed his eyes. However, in his perception, he seemed to be soaring from the depths of the dark underground. Nothing could stop him. Correspondingly, his potential was also soaring and subliming. Chapter 1133. Bang! After an unknown amount of time, Yi Chen's body suddenly emitted a silvery radiance that seemed to have materialized. Anyone familiar with Selfless Realm would know that this was the second stage of Selfless Realm, Selfless Body. The second stage of Selfless Realm was divided into two paths. One was Selfless Heavenly Eye, and the other was Selfless Body. The pupils of Selfless Heavenly Eye would be golden, while the body would emit a silvery radiance. Once one reached the Selfless Body realm, it meant that one's potential had been stimulated to the limit. One more step would be the highest realm, Selfless Emperor. This silvery radiance represented the flame of potential. The brighter the silvery radiance, the stronger the potential. Slowly opening his eyes, his black pupils were dyed a deep silver, cold and emotionless. The corners of his eyes also seemed to have become much sharper, long and narrow like blades. Yi Chen inwardly thought, worthy of the selfless body. The combination of Zhen Yuan and potential is like water and milk. My battle strength should have increased by about 2-fold. The first stage of Selfless Realm was not as powerful as the secret art 3-flower borrowing Dao, which was about 70 to 80%. The second stage would increase it by 2-folds, and the third stage would increase it by 5-fold. As for surpassing Selfless Realm and condensing the Emperor's mark, that would be quite an exaggeration. Of course, although Yi Chen's battle strength had increased from 70 to 80%, the overall improvement was not that big. 3-star Purple Gold rank commander had the strength of a high-level combat emperor, and the gap between the most ordinary high-level combat emperor and the strongest high-level combat emperor was at least 10-fold. If Yi Chen was a mid-level high-level combat emperor before, he was now almost at the high level. There was still a long way to go before he could break through to the peak-level combat emperor realm. One had to admit that martial skills were the best way to rapidly increase one's strength. As long as one comprehended it, one's battle strength might increase by 10 or 20 folds. Without exaggeration, if one could comprehend a 5th revolution martial skill at the first layer of life and death realm, defeating a titled monarch would be as easy as waving one's hand. It should be known that a 5th revolution martial skill was more than 10,000 times more powerful than a 3rd revolution martial skill. For any martial skill, every time a profound was fused, its destructive power would increase exponentially. Moreover, the further one went, the more obvious it became. The reason why Yi Chen could possess his current strength was closely related to the 3rd revolution limit sword art. As for speeding up the progress of martial skills, one had to first raise one's cultivation base. The higher one's cultivation base was, the stronger one's perception would be. It was impossible for a 5th-layer life and death king's perception to surpass a 9th-layer life and death sovereign. It was said that every single 9th-layer life and death sovereign had comprehended a supreme martial skill. The so-called peerless martial arts were the perfect martial art. The fusion of Upanishads was perfect. For example, life and death, 5 elements, yin and yang, time and space, earth, water, fire, wind, light and darkness, supreme martial skills were the pinnacle of martial skills. Although a martial skill containing life and death profound seemed to be a second revolution martial skill on the surface, it was only on the surface. Even if one could fuse 6 kinds of Upanishads and comprehend a 6th revolution martial skill, its lethality would still be far inferior to life and death profound. Life and death profound contained too much. It had already formed a reincarnation cycle, and one's 6 kinds of Upanishads could not surpass life and death profound. Unfortunately, supreme martial arts were too hard to comprehend. Yi Chen's yin profound and yang profound had already reached perfection, and his 5 elements profound had also reached perfection. However, if he wanted to fuse them into a martial art, it would be as hard as ascending to the heavens. Of course, supreme martial skills also had different levels. Someone who had just comprehended a life and death profound would certainly not be able to compare with someone who had comprehended it for a long time. Talking about this was too far away. Yi Chen had just climbed a small mountain, and was still far away from the summit. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 100 months had passed in the Time Tower, which was equivalent to 1 month in the outside world. Yi Chen finally learned the 7th position of Hidden Dragon Sutra. The 7th position of the Hidden Dragon art is called Soaring Dragon in the Sky. To ordinary people, this position is so rare that it makes one's hair stand on end. This position is about absolute freedom and absolute will. Although my body doesn't move, my heart is like a soaring dragon soaring into the sky, soaring through the 9 heavens. My will runs through the heaven and earth. Hidden Dragon rises from the abyss had stimulated all of his potential, while Soaring Dragon in the Sky had fermented this potential and refined it to the point of being reborn. At this point, he was merely a step away from the 3rd stage of selfless state, selfless emperor. Almost there. Yi Chen continued to comprehend the 8th position of Hidden Dragon Sutra, rebuking the wind and clouds. The dragon flew up into the sky and began to command the wind and clouds. The 8th posture was about how to unleash one's potential to the extreme and enter a mysterious state where everything in the world revolved around one. When Yi Chen was comprehending Hidden Dragon Sutra in the Time Tower, the Paradise of Gods Hotel became boisterous. There were still 3 to 4 days before the high-ranking members entered the hunting tower. Most of the high-ranking members were in the hotel, including the members of the Exorcist Squad. Thousand Arrow Monarch, are you telling the truth? Did Yi Chen kill Mo Lu King? Mo Lu King has the strength of a low-level combat emperor. Even a mid-level combat emperor would have a hard time killing him. Mo Lu King could have easily escaped. That's right. No matter how fast Yi Chen improves, he shouldn't be this abnormal. Most of the people were still skeptical. Zhang Yining sneered. Why would I lie to you? To tell you the truth, killing Mal King is not even worth mentioning. Right now, he is a 3-star purple gold commander. He has already chosen a 3rd-grade life planet's main city as his territory. Are you all scared out of your wits? What? 3-star purple gold commander? Killing the Mal King had already aroused many people's suspicions, but becoming a 3-star purple gold rank commander left everyone dumbfounded. In the entire Paradise of Gods, only the Sky Martial King was a 2-star purple gold commander. This time, it was said that the Vermilion Bird King and the Divine Blade King had also become 1-star purple gold commanders, but compared to the 3-star purple gold commanders, they were undoubtedly insignificant. A 1-star purple gold commander was equivalent to a low-level combat emperor, A 2-star purple gold commander was equivalent to a mid-level combat emperor, and a 3-star purple gold commander was equivalent to a high-level combat emperor. Let alone the paradise of God, there were only a few high-level combat emperors in the entire high-rank hunting battlefield. The goddess of darkness from the demons, God bless Queen, was one of them. The paradise of God was at a disadvantage in the high-rank hunting battlefield. Why? It was because they didn't have anyone who could control the situation. They didn't have any absolute experts, and they didn't have many people. For example, the demons had God bless Queen, the barbarian race had Barbarian Bone King, and the Yaksha race had Blood Spear King. These three were collectively known as the three great combat emperors in the high-rank hunting battlefield. They were leaders, and with them around, the others could only run away. If they weren't fast enough, they would naturally die. The paradise of God bless Queen and Blood Spear King had accumulated to more than 10 quasi-emperors and a few combat emperors. If this continued, their overall strength would become weaker and weaker, and it would be very difficult for them to make a comeback. Now, they finally had a leader. Yi Chen's existence could guarantee the paradise of God's position and prevent them from becoming weaker. Chapter 1134. High-level Battle Emperor Strength. This Yi Chen is truly powerful. In a private room of the restaurant, Martial King, Vermilion Bird King, and Divine Blade King were drinking. After hearing the news, Martial King couldn't help but praise. Vermilion Bird King nodded. Surpassing us in less than 10 years. I'm afraid most 9th layer life and death realm supremes couldn't do it when they were young. 9th layer life and death realm supremes were all geniuses and monstrous geniuses. When they were young, they were undoubtedly the heaven's proud sons and daughters, the leaders of the young generation. However, compared to Yi Chen, they were a lot inferior. Only a few supremes could compare to Yi Chen when they were young. Martial King, you can now attack the 7th layer without worry. Divine Blade King looked at Martial King and said, "Yeah." Martial King smiled. "As long as I condense the Emperor's mark, I can enter the 7th layer at any time." In fact, if Martial King had thought about it, he would have had absolute confidence in attacking the 7th layer a few years ago. However, he couldn't let go of his team, couldn't let go of the high-level members of God Paradise. Although he was only a mid-level battle emperor, and couldn't compare to the 3 battle emperors in the high-level hunting battlefield, with him here, he could at least stall for a bit. Divine Blade King and Vermilion Bird King were low-level battle emperors and couldn't reach Martial King's level for the time being. If they encountered a high-level battle emperor and didn't escape in time, they would have a 90% chance of dying. Of course, the God Paradise had too many benefits. Rushing to the 7th life and death realm might not be a good thing. It should be known that once one succeeded, they would be teleported out of the God Paradise. From then on, they would no longer be able to enjoy the benefits of the Time Tower and Martial Tower. However, to Cheong Wu King, this kind of benefit was dispensable because he had reached a real limit. Under the limit, it was impossible for him to make much progress in the paradise of gods. Everyone had their own limit. Some people had the strength of a high-level combat emperor before breaking through to the 7th layer of life and death realm. Some had the strength of a mid-level combat emperor, some had the strength of a low-level combat emperor, some had the strength of a pseudo-emperor, some had the strength of the 8th floor of the God of War Pagoda, and some had the strength of the 7th floor. Once this limit was reached, even if one were to put in 100 times the effort, it would still be useless. Rather than wasting time on unrealistic fantasies, it would be better to wisely enter the 7th layer of life and death realm. After all, after becoming a titled monarch, one's perception would greatly increase, and the so-called limits would vanish like smoke in thin air. This would save one's time and not waste it in vain. Congratulations, you're finally leaving the paradise of gods. The Vermilion Bird King raised his cup and took a sip. King Cheong Wu shook his head and smiled. Don't make it sound like the paradise of gods is a barren land. No matter what, this is a sacred land for geniuses. Letting out a sigh, the Vermilion Bird King said, "The paradise of gods is a sacred land for geniuses, but it is also a cage. I've forgotten the taste of adventure." Hearing these words, Cheong Wu King and Divine Blade King turned silent. Indeed, they had forgotten the taste of adventure. Ever since they became members of the paradise of gods, they had basically never taken any risk. At most, they had joined the army and fought against enemies. It should be known that before entering the paradise of gods, all of them had rich experiences. Starry sky, secret realms, cosmic wonders, strange planets, cosmic beasts. There were many dangerous places in the universe, but there were even more wonderful places. Even if they spent their entire lives, they wouldn't be able to explore even 1/10,000th of the universe. However, since the paradise of gods had to conduct a hunt every once in a while, they couldn't afford to be delayed by taking risk. After all, there were some dangerous places that could last for decades or even centuries. Let's not talk about this. Soon, we'll also leave the paradise of gods. Right now, we should treasure our time here. Divine Blade King was very open-minded and raised his cup to toast. "You're right, our lives are still long." The Vermilion Bird King smiled. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the senior members to enter the hunting tower. Yi Chen had already come out of the Tower of Time and met up with the other members of the Evil Hunter Squad. The Evil Hunter Squad was now the #1 squad in the Paradise of Gods. As for whether they were the #1 squad in the senior hunting battleground, it still needed time to test. "Let's go. Let's go." The group of 7 entered the hunting tower. On the huge hunting planet, Yi Chen's group of 7 appeared in a dense forest. The dense forest of the hunting planet was very dangerous. Not only were there god insects, but there were also many man-eating plants, such as emperor flowers, bewitching plants, king-class man-eating trees, etc. Yuan Hong was a bit unlucky. He was almost dragged into the depths of the ground by a few black vines. It should be known that the ground of the hunting planet was very hard. A random handful of soil weighed tens of thousands of kilograms. If Yuan Hong was dragged into the depths of the ground, it would be difficult for him to escape. At the critical moment, Zhang Yining used Death Coil to entangle the black vines and pulled Yuan Hong back. That was really dangerous. Yuan Hong wiped his sweat. Regardless of whether it was on the hunting planet or in the outer universe, these black vines were very famous. They were called Death God Vines. They were even more famous than Emperor Flowers. It was said that a matured Death God Vine could entangle hundreds or even thousands of planets. Once someone entered its attack range, they would most likely die. Fortunately, there weren't many Death God Vines on the hunting planet. This was the second time the Evil Hunter Squad encountered one. Very quickly, 2 days passed. Within 2 days, the Evil Hunter Squad killed 9 normal god insects and 3 elite god insects. They had earned 75,000 Shinbi. We finally encountered a commander-class god insect. On the morning of the 3rd day, the Evil Hunter Squad encountered their first commander-class god insect. Commander-class god insects had the strength of a combat emperor. Of course, there were differences in strength. The weaker ones were equivalent to beginner combat emperors. The stronger ones might be equivalent to peak combat emperors. The Evil Hunter Squad encountered this commander-class god insect. It looked like a vicious hound, but it had 6 legs, 4 pairs of transparent wings, and hundreds of eyes on its forehead. It was truly a modified monster. The other members of the Evil Hunter Squad stopped at a distance. Facing a commander-class god insect, not only would they not be able to help, they might even die. Yi Chen alone was enough. Roar! The evil hound god insect flapped its 4 pairs of transparent wings and fiercely pounced over. The powerful airflow blew all the nearby trees into the sky, creating a scene of flying sand and rock. When the evil hound god insect was less than 1,000 meters away from Yi Chen made his move. He unsheathed the dragon spring sword and slashed. Bang! The evil hound god insect was sent flying. In the next instant, its huge body started burning and turned into ashes. True Inferno sword. So powerful! Ludi opened his mouth. This sword art is too powerful. As expected of a peak Third Revolution sword art. The Thousand Arrow King could feel the power contained in this sword. A commander-class god insect was worth 30,000 shinbi. The evil hunter squad once again made a small profit. Of course, the one who contributed the most was Yi Chen, and the one who got the most was Yi Chen. On the 5th day, the evil hunter squad had killed 18 ordinary god insects, 7 elite god insects, and 2 commander-class god insects. The total profit was 220,000 shinbi. Yi Chen contributed 25 shinbi, so he got about 80,000 shinbi. At this rate of earning shinbi, it wouldn't take many years for Yi Chen to have 1,000,000 shinbi, which he could then exchange for a mid-level Heavenly King set. In terms of defense, a low-level Heavenly King set was equivalent to a top-level Heavenly King set, while a mid-level Heavenly King set was equivalent to an ordinary Emperor set. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that if a demi-emperor wore a mid-level Heavenly King set, most combat emperors wouldn't be able to do anything to him. However, 1,000,000 shinbi was an astronomical figure for combat emperors. On the 6th day, the evil hunter squad finally encountered an enemy squad. This squad was from the evil god Paradise. They were called the Blood Sea Squad, and their captain was only a peak demi-emperor. Run! After a few rounds of fighting, the members of the Blood Sea Squad started to flee frantically. Yi Chen was too powerful. He killed 3 of their members with a single slash. This was clearly the strength of a combat emperor, and not a beginner combat emperor, but at least a middle combat emperor. Chase, don't let them escape. Under the leadership of Yi Chen, the evil hunter squad chased after them with all their might. As time passed, Yi Chen killed another member of the Blood Sea Squad. The enemy was left with 3 members, and they had suffered heavy losses. Blood Spear King, save us! The captain of the Blood Sea Squad shouted urgently. In the distance, another squad appeared. This squad was famous in the high-grade hunting battlefield. It was the Blood Spear Squad from the Yiksha Paradise. Their captain was one of the 3 combat emperors in the high-grade hunting battlefield, Blood Spear King. Blood Spear King was the same as the god-blessed queen. He was the nightmare of the paradise of gods. In the past 200 years, he had killed countless demi-emperors, and even a few combat emperors. It's the captain of the Blood Sea Squad. One of the members of the Blood Spear Squad recognized the captain. The paradise of gods chasing them seems to be the Evil Hunter Squad. Since when did the Evil Hunter Squad become so powerful? Only 3 members of the Blood Sea Squad remain. Another member said doubtfully, "Let's go take a look." Blood Spear King increased his speed and rushed over. "Blood Sea King, what's going on?" Blood Spear King asked after meeting up with the captain. In the high-grade hunting battlefield, the demons, evil spirit race, and Yiksha race were allies. Humans, barbarians, and giants were allies. Allies naturally had to help each other unless the enemy was too powerful. Blood Sea King said with a pale face, "One of the members of the Evil Hunter Squad is a combat emperor. I suspect he has the strength of a mid-combat emperor. We lost 4 members." Blood Sea King's heart was bleeding. 4 members? This was not something that could grow up in a short period of time. Mid-combat emperor? Blood Spear King looked at the approaching Evil Hunter Squad. Ultimately, his gaze fell on Yi Chen. Only Yi Chen could give him a trace of threat, even though Yi Chen's cultivation base was only at the 5th layer of life and death realm. That's him. Blood Sea King's gaze also firmly stared at Yi Chen. "Be careful, he is Blood Spear King, one of the 3 combat emperors in the high-grade hunting battlefield." Thousand Arrow King warned Yi Chen. A person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. Although Yi Chen was also a high-level combat emperor, his fame was not as great as Blood Spear King's. Chapter 1135. Nodding, Yi Chen naturally wouldn't look down on Blood Spear King. The gap between high-level battle emperors wasn't that big. Blood Spear King had already been a low-level battle emperor 200 years ago, reaching mid-level in 140 years, and high-level 50 years ago. In these 50 years, he clearly wouldn't have stopped improving. Otherwise, he wouldn't have needed to stay in Yiksha God Paradise. With his talent, he would have long since broken through to the 7th layer. Of course, it couldn't be ruled out that Blood Spear King wanted to earn more Shinbi to exchange for a higher-level Heavenly King set. Above mid-level Heavenly King set, there were still high-level and peak-level Heavenly King set. The amount of Shinbi required was astronomical even for battle emperors. Blood Spear King, don't kill nameless people. State your name. A 2-meter-long blood-colored spear appeared in Blood Spear King's hand. The spearhead was like the fangs of a viper, emitting a gloomy and austere aura. You don't need to know my name, Yi Chen indifferently said while holding the dragon's spring sword's hilt with his right hand. Arrogant. Then die. Blood Spear King didn't waste any more words with Yi Chen. He instantly entered the Anata Emperor realm, increasing his battle power by 5 times. Holding the blood-colored spear with both hands, he crazily stabbed out. In a blink of an eye, he had stabbed out at least several hundred times. The blood-colored spear shadows transformed into blood-colored vipers midway, pouncing toward Yi Chen. Blood Spear King's 3rd revolution martial skill, 100 Vipers Flurry. Facing this move that relied on quantity to win, Yi Chen didn't dare to be negligent. He opened the Anata Emperor realm, and a layer of deep silver with a hint of gold radiance appeared on his body. He unsheathed the dragon's spring sword and unleashed a true inferno sword chi. Crackle! Countless blood-colored vipers were incinerated like snow under the scorching sun. Without a sound, the raging sword chi broke through layer after layer of obstacles and appeared before Blood Spear King. Blood Spear King coldly snorted and shook his spear, creating a blood-colored spear flower. The next moment, a scorching shockwave blasted Blood Spear King dozens of li away. What? The captain of the Blood Sea battle team, Blood Sea King, widened his eyes in disbelief. The Blood Spear Monarch was a true advanced combat emperor, but he was sent flying in his first exchange with Yi Chen. Didn't this mean that Yi Chen was stronger than the Blood Spear Monarch? The Blood Spear King's face was ashen. He had not expected that Yi Chen's sword would have such a powerful aftershock. If not for his Heavenly King set, he would definitely have been injured. Mid-level Heavenly King set. Yi Chen squinted his eyes. Blood Lance Monarch wasn't wearing a low-class Heavenly King set, but a mid-class Heavenly King set. In terms of defense, a mid-class Heavenly King set was equivalent to an Emperor armor. It wasn't something that could be broken by ordinary people. Otherwise, Blood Lance Monarch wouldn't be unscathed. After a few months of training, Yi Chen's strength had reached the peak of a high-class combat emperor. Snake Dragon Flash. Relying on his mid-class Heavenly King set, the Blood Spear King attacked Yi Chen again. This time, he used a rank 3 martial art that was stronger than the 100 Snake Flurry, Snake Dragon Flash. A blood-colored spear light flashed and a poisonous snake turned into a blood dragon, pouncing towards Yi Chen. Looking at its posture, its penetrating power seemed to be very strong. Yi Chen neither retreated nor dodged. He raised the dragon's spring sword high above his head and slashed forcefully. The dazzling sword aura contained a trace of black, easily splitting the blood dragon. The Blood Spear King only had time to move a few meters to the side before he was hit by the sword aura. The True Inferno Sword was different from the True Inferno Sword. The True Inferno Sword's strength lay in its momentum, and if the first wave was barely blocked, the second wave would definitely not be able to block it. If the first wave could be completely blocked, the second wave would probably not be able to do anything to him. For example, although the Blood Spear King was wearing a mid-level Heavenly King set, with his power, he could also block the True Inferno Sword, and at most suffer some minor injuries. However, the Extreme Sun Essence was different. The extreme sun essence was able to transform the essence of the sun into the most extreme power to attack the enemy. In terms of offense, it was undoubtedly more powerful than the true Inferno sword. The sound of metal exploding was heard. Originally, the Blood Spear King's mid-class Heavenly King set had been refined into his body. However, after suffering such a huge attack, the Heavenly King set was suddenly revealed, shining with a golden red light. Tsk tisk, that's 1,000,000 divine coins. Sima Fei's face revealed an envious expression. He wasn't surprised that Yi Chen could gain the upper hand. After all, he didn't think that Yi Chen was weaker than the Blood Spear King. They were both on the same level. A several li-long passage was blasted through the dense forest. At the end of the passage, the Blood Spear King stood up with his face covered in dirt. Under his feet was a huge pit. The soil had turned into sand and was emitting a blazing heat. The hunting star had 1/10 of the gravity of a white dwarf star. Although the objects here were not as abnormal as white dwarfs, with density not even 1/100th, they were still not that easy to destroy. The Blood Spear King only felt a small portion of the energy in his body being consumed. The majority of it was used to power the Heavenly King set. Blood God All. A red light flickered in his eyes as the Blood Spear King launched a soul attack at Yi Chen. A Blood All formed from soul power shot out. Yi Chen naturally didn't fear the Blood Spear King's soul attack. In terms of battle power, his soul attack wasn't the least bit inferior, and was even more direct. Of course, soul attacks were rarely used in battles between life and death kings. Soul attacks consumed a lot of soul power, and the number of times they could be used was limited. When the soul power dropped to a certain level, it would affect one's state, and all aspects of one's constitution would decline. Therefore, although soul attack secret arts were extremely important, they were mostly left unused, and could only be used a few times a year. However, if one thought that soul attacks weren't used often, they wouldn't cultivate it. This was a very foolish action. Life and Death Kings didn't just need to be strong on the surface, but also in all other aspects. Simply speaking, one couldn't have any shortcomings, because they were the biggest flaws. Compared to soul defense, soul attacks were sometimes more important. Not only could they counteract the enemy's soul attack, they could also attack the enemy's soul. Puff! The invisible Blood All was dispersed by a soul sword chi before it could even approach Yi Chen. The remnant sword chi ripples even radiated toward the Blood Spear King. The Blood Spear King let out a muffled groan, his face turning pale. Although he had already arranged 3 layers of soul defense, the sword chi ripples formed from soul power were still frightening. 2 of the 3 layers of soul defense had actually been broken through. If not for the Blood God All's counteracting effect, wouldn't it have easily cut through his soul defense? His guess wasn't wrong. The complete soul sword chi could indeed break through his soul defense. Just as the first soul sword chi was sent out, the second one came right after. Taking advantage of Blood Spear King's soul power being shaken, it ruthlessly slashed over. An earth-shattering sound resounded in Blood Spear King's mind as blood flowed out from his 7 apertures. His soul defense had been thoroughly broken through, and a huge sword scar had appeared in his sea of soul. The sword scar seemed to have been carved into his sea of soul, and was difficult to recover from. Go! Without any hesitation, Blood Spear King soared into the sky and fled into the distance. He was scared. Although Yi Chen couldn't break through his mid-level Heavenly King grade armor, he could heavily injure his soul with soul attack. He was even more freakish than God-blessed Queen. Seeing Blood Spear King fleeing in a sorry state, the others naturally followed without saying a word. However, among the 3 members of Blood Sea battle team, 2 were a step too slow and were slashed into ashes by Yi Chen. Only Blood Sea King managed to escape alive. It was not that Yi Chen didn't want to chase after Blood Spear King. In a one-on-one situation, he could easily heavily injure the opponent's soul and then slowly grind him to death. However, Blood Spear King still had 6 members and 3 members of Blood Sea Battle Team. Once he consumed too much soul power and was hit by a few soul attacks, the one in danger would be himself. In a group battle, one had to be cautious when using soul attacks. No one could use soul attacks limitlessly. Normally, Life and Death Kings could only use soul attacks 3 times. Of course, if one cultivated a powerful soul attack secret art, they might only be able to use it once. After that, their soul power would be completely exhausted. Yi Chen's limit was 5 times. After 5 times, his soul power would fall below the warning line. As for using ordinary soul attacks, he might as well not use them at all. All in all, Yi Chen's soul power was 10 times that of the majority of Life and Death Kings. This majority of Life and Death Kings didn't include the members of True God Paradise. Which member of True God Paradise wasn't an elite among geniuses? Their soul power was equally powerful, and Yi Chen wouldn't be that much stronger than them. Killing 6 members of Blood Sea Battle Team, he obtained 900,000 divine coins. Adding the 220,000 from before, he had a total of 1,1220,000. Yi Chen's contribution was 50, so he could obtain 800,000 divine coins. Without a doubt, this was a huge harvest. In the future, it would be hard to encounter such a person. Once one's fame rose, the enemies would flee the moment they encountered you. Nobody was an idiot. Chapter 1136. By the time the 7 days of hunting ended, the Evil Hunter Squad's income had reached 1,650,000. After Blood Sea Squad, Yi Chen killed another 3 enemy members. 1,650,000 Shinbi plus the squad's rewards, the Evil Hunter Squad's total income had reached 1,815,000 Shinbi. Yi Chen's contribution remained the same, 50 Shinbi, which meant that he would receive 1,300,000 Shinbi. Originally, Yi Chen didn't expect to earn 1 million Shinbi in one go, but he didn't expect to surpass it. This way, it was more than enough to exchange for a mid-level Heavenly King grade set. Although Myriad Arrow King and the other 5's income wasn't as frightening as Yi Chen's, they were already satisfied. Myriad Arrow King's contribution was a bit higher, so he received 100,000 Shinbi, while the others received around 80,000 Shinbi. This was much higher than what they had earned in the past few years. Of course, this was an exception. In the future, their income wouldn't be so high. After exiting the hunting tower, Yi Chen went straight to the exchange tower. On the 2nd floor, Yi Chen chose the mid-level Heavenly King grade set he wanted. This was a blue-red set of equipment called the Iron Blood Dark Blue. It had a helmet, armor, arm guards, leg guards, boots, and gloves. It had an extra helmet compared to the silver equipment set. As for its defensive power, even though it had not been refined into the body, its defensive power had already far surpassed the silver equipment set. It was about 10 times stronger than the silver equipment set. Once it was refined into the body, it would definitely be 10 times stronger. Every person could only exchange for 1 Heavenly King set. Yi Chen already had a silver set, and if he chose the Iron Blood Deep Blue set, he would have to give up on the silver set. Fortunately, it wouldn't be for nothing. The exchange tower would refund 80% of the divine coins, and the 300,000 divine coins he spent on the silver set would be refunded to 240,000. It's time to go back. Yi Chen believed that he had already made ample preparations. With his current battle power and defense, even if he encountered a 7th-layer life and death realm titled monarch, he would still be able to put up a fight. Most importantly, he still had Dijiang Hao and Phantom. Their defensive power was astonishing, able to withstand the continuous bombardment of a high-level battle emperor. Yi Chen, don't you want to go to the Black Tortoise Galaxy? Inside the hotel, the Evil Hunter battle team was discussing the upcoming year's matters as per usual. Yi Chen shook his head. No, I want to return to the living world I'm in. The demons and the evil spirit race have sealed off the exit there. Demons and evil spirits again? Demons and the evil spirit race were notorious in the universe. Because living worlds were different from living planets, there was no pattern to their distribution. Some were close to living star systems, while others were very far away from living star systems. It was obvious that the living world Yi Chen was in was very remote. Otherwise, it would not have become the target of the demons and the evil spirit race. "How about we go with you?" Zhang Yining suddenly said. "That's a good idea. I can take the opportunity to see the outside world." The one who spoke was Yuan Hong. Yi Chen originally wanted to decline. After all, there was a certain degree of danger. However, he could not resist the enthusiasm of his teammates, so he agreed. "Your Phantom is really not bad. It should cost at least 50 to 60 million. In the universe, a small battleship was traveling at high speed. The interior of the battleship was extremely luxurious. The 7 members of the Evil Hunter battle team were drinking in the hall. The 10,000 Arrows monarch and the others were not ordinary people. Each of them had a strong background, but they did not have much wealth. After all, they were not more than 500 years old, and the accumulation of wealth had just begun. Of course, if there was a sufficient reason, the families behind them would pay for them. This was the difference between having a background and not. It was not reflected in one's wealth. As a Thearch-level battleship, the Phantom was 9 times faster than a King-level battleship and 3 times faster than a Heavenly King-level battleship. It would take about 4 months to return to Elysium. 1 year was enough for a round trip. During this time, Yi Chen continued to comprehend the Hidden Dragon Technique's 8th stance, all-powerful. He was very clear that the stronger he was, the less dangerous he would be. In one of the Phantom's training rooms, Yi Chen's left hand's index and middle fingers were pressed between his eyebrows. His right hand was extended forward. This stance was the all-powerful stance. The further one cultivated the Hidden Dragon spell, the harder it would be to understand its essence. Fortunately, Yi Chen already had some understanding of it. 1 month passed. Yi Chen's body emitted a trace of all-powerful aura. This aura was very mystical. The moment it appeared, Yi Chen became the center of the entire Phantom. It was as if everything was revolving around him, breathing along with his joy. Although he did not release his soul power, Yi Chen could feel everything inside the Phantom, including the actions of the 10,000 Arrows monarch and the others. They were all under his control. Strange. Why do I feel like I'm seeing Yi Chen? Yuan Hong was drinking in his room. In the darkness, he seemed to see Yi Chen in the training room. It was so clear, yet so blurry. It was very contradictory. The others had the same feeling, but they did not make a fuss. In the 2nd month, the all-powerful aura on Yi Chen's body became more and more intense, and his eyebrows became even more transparent. Yi Chen should be breaking through. 10,000 Arrows monarch guessed. At the end of the 3rd month, bang! The Phantom suddenly shook violently, and a frightening aura burst out with Yi Chen as the center. Not good! 10,000 Arrows monarch and the others' expressions changed. They were not in the starry sky of the outside world, but in the void of the universe. Once the Phantom collapsed, they would be torn apart by the void turbulence and assimilated. Only 8th-layer life and Death Jin Yuan could survive in the void. They were far from that level. Soon, the 6 left their rooms and entered the luxurious hall. Emperor-grade battleships shouldn't collapse so easily, Lu Wenjie said calmly. I wonder what Yi Chen is cultivating to cause such a huge commotion. Cultivating inside a puppet battleship was a normal thing, but they had never encountered such a situation. Bang! Another violent tremble occurred. In the next moment, the space outside distorted, and the Phantom materialized in the starry sky with twinkling stars everywhere. Inside the training room, Yi Chen slowly opened his eyes. Countless stars were reflected in his pupils, looking unfathomable. Is this the selfless Emperor realm? At this moment, Yi Chen finally comprehended the 8th stance of Hidden Dragon Art, all-powerful realm. As soon as this stance was completed, Yi Chun naturally entered the third stage of Selfless Emperor Realm. The so-called Selfless Emperor Realm was the realm where one could completely control one's potential like a high and mighty emperor. Every bit of one's body would be under one's control, without any blind spots. Apart from this, one would also have a keen observation of the surroundings. Huff! Sucking in a deep breath, Yi Chun felt his body brimming with explosive power. He lightly clenched his fist, and boundless power poured into the center of his fist, ready to burst out at any time. Chapter 1137. If one were to say that Yi Chun had the strength of a peak high-level battle emperor before, then now that he had broken through, he had the strength of a peak battle emperor. Not many 7th-layer life and death realm titled monarchs could defeat him. Coupled with a mid-level heavenly king set, perhaps only 8th-layer life and death realm titled monarchs could suppress him. In the entire cosmos, how many 8th-layer life and death titled monarchs were there? Each and every one of them was an emperor-level existence. As for the 9th layer, they were all supremes. Pushing open the door of the training room, Yi Chun came to the hall. "I'm sorry to have startled everyone," Yi Chun said apologetically. "It's fine, the Emperor-class warship is very safe." The myriad Arrow Monarch smiled and shook his head. "Yi Chun, what did you break through?" Zhang Yining asked curiously. Yi Chun said, "It's the Selfless Emperor realm." "No way." Lu Di had an exaggerated expression. "You broke through to the Selfless Emperor realm so quickly." They knew a long time ago that Yi Chun could not open the Anatta realm due to special reasons, but they did not expect Yi Chun to advance so quickly. It was simply 1,000 miles in a day. It was really infuriating to compare oneself with others. "It is all thanks to the hidden dragon art." Yi Chun smiled. "This is also because your comprehension is high enough." "Not bad. With your high comprehension ability, you can comprehend everything quickly. When your cultivation increases, it will be like adding wings to a tiger." At the end of the 4th month. "We're here." Yi Chun steered Phantom back into space. Through the transparent crystal of the battleship, they could see a chaos vortex in the distance. That was the entrance to Elysium. This is a good opportunity to see how your hometown is different from other living worlds. Although they would be suppressed when they entered Elysium, they were not as strong as the other races. Their strength would not be greatly weakened, and their foundation would not be damaged. "I'm afraid it won't be easy to get in." The vertical eye between Yi Chun's brows opened. Soon, he saw a large number of demon kings and evil kings on the 2 nearby planets. Apart from that, there was also a huge meteorite floating near the chaos vortex. There was also a team of demon kings guarding it. There were about 40,000 of them. "Then let's charge in." Yuan Hong's eyes flashed with excitement. 12 million kilometers away from the chaotic vortex was a pale yellow planet. This planet had been transformed into a huge planetary fortress, and the inside was almost hollowed out. Of course, nothing unusual could be seen from the outside. Noiselessly, the 14 battleships approached. Each member of the Demon Hunter squad had 2 battleships. Yi Chun had a small Emperor Stage battleship and a large Emperor Stage battleship, while the Myriad Arrows Monarch and the others each had a small Heavenly King battleship and a large Heavenly King battleship. Generally speaking, a peak Heavenly King grade battleship's cannon could kill a 5th-layer life and death king. If it could accumulate enough energy, it could even kill a 6th-layer life and death king. A peak Emperor grade battleship was even more frightening. A casual cannon could heavily injure an ordinary 7th-layer life and death king, and if it had enough energy, it could even kill in one shot. However, in reality, it was very difficult to achieve such a feat after all. The opponent could easily dodge it. 14 puppet battleships and 7 people quickly rushed toward the pale yellow planet. 5 million kilometers. 8 million kilometers. 5 million kilometers. 3 million kilometers. Not good. There's an enemy. The interior of the pale yellow planet seemed to have exploded. They hadn't expected that someone would ambush them and find their position without them noticing. Immediately, hundreds of demon kings rushed out. 2,000,000 kilometers. 1,000,000 kilometers. Kill! With a thought from Yi Chen, the 96 puppet cannons on the 2 Emperor-grade battleships simultaneously erupted with intense flames. Each of the puppet cannons on Emperor-grade battleships was shockingly expensive. They were engraved with countless arrays that could instantly extract the energy of yuan stones, compress it infinitely, and then shoot it out. Without any exaggeration, a single cannon shot from an Emperor-grade battleship would consume at least 5,000 yuan stones. A volley of cannon shots would consume around 500,000 yuan stones. Ordinary people simply couldn't afford it. Myriad Arrow's Monarch and the others also operated their Heavenly King-grade battleships and fiercely attacked the pale yellow planet. Apart from them, Yi Chen's group of 7 didn't stay idle either. Each of them unleashed their own trump card. Yi Chen used the True Inferno Sword, and a scarlet sword chi shot out, growing larger and larger. Myriad Arrow's Monarch used the myriad transformations, and millions of arrows covered the sky. Lu Di slashed out with his saber, and saber light swept out. Lu Wenjie wielded a blood-colored spear, and spear afterimages filled the air, one after another. Zhang Yinin's hand seals changed, and vines as thick as dragons wrapped around the pale yellow planet. Yuan Hong's body enlarged, and his entire body shone with golden light. He directly punched out. Sima Fei's claw energy was extremely sharp, and it could tear the sky and earth apart. No ordinary planet could withstand the power of his claw. Pop! The pale yellow planet was like a fragile bubble that suddenly burst. There was no shockwave of a planet's explosion, because this planet was completely destroyed, not detonated. The attack of Yi Chen's group was much more powerful than a planet's explosion, especially Yi Chen and his Emperor-grade battleship. The destructive force radiated in all directions, and the demon kings that had escaped from the pale yellow planet didn't even have the time to scream before they were caught up by the force and swept into nothingness. The others that had escaped fast enough also vomited blood incessantly, and their bodies were sent flying in all directions like meteors. This round of attack killed at least 18,000 demon kings. Most of the demon kings didn't have time to escape the pale yellow planet, and only a few survived. Haha, these are the demon's army. Yi Chen's group of 7 discovered that their battle achievements were increasing. It turned out that these demon kings were the demon's army. There were soldiers, centurions, minor lieutenants, and major lieutenant. Unfortunately, only those killed by themselves counted as their own battle achievements. Those killed by the puppet cannons didn't count, and those killed by the chaotic energy also didn't count. Bastard, who are you? A ball of black flame rushed over and stopped 1,000,000 miles away. When the flame dissipated, a tall demon stood there, wearing black armor. Clearly, the fierce attack had shaken off his armor. While he was speaking, more and more demon kings gathered. These were the fish that escaped the net, and there were about 1,000 of them. All of them were in a sorry state, and their eyes were filled with anger and ferocity. The demon Scorpion Emperor was a 2-star general of the demons. He was ordered to lead 20,000 demons to guard Elysium. He could leave after 50 years, and other generals would replace him. As for the soldiers under him, they could only leave after 100 years. Although he was unwilling, he had no other choice. Fortunately, the demons would reward them with a certain amount of contribution points according to their ranks, so it wasn't a waste of effort. As a 2-star general, the demon Scorpion Emperor was naturally very powerful. He didn't even care about ordinary titled monarch. In his eyes, Yi Chen's group of 7 were already dead. Kill! Yi Chen didn't pay attention to the demon Scorpion Emperor. He waved the dragon spring sword, and a dazzling sword chi burst out. The demon Scorpion Emperor's face was filled with astonishment as he turned into ashes. The hundreds of demon kings around him didn't manage to dodge in time, and all of them were turned into nothingness. Yi Chen's strength as a peak-level combat emperor had been fully displayed. Chapter 1138. 4-star Purple Gold Commander's Strength? The remaining demon kings felt their scalps go numb, and one of them cried out involuntarily. Demon Scorpion Emperor was a 2-star general. Only 3-star generals could kill 2-star generals in one move. However, it was said that 4-star Purple Gold Commander's strength was not inferior to 3-star generals. The two were evenly matched, and the gap between them wasn't that big. Since Yi Chen's cultivation base hadn't reached the 7th layer, he was definitely a 4-star Purple Gold Commander, which was 10 times more prestigious than a 3-star general. Perhaps even a 5-star general's status couldn't compare to a 4-star Purple Gold Commander. After all, there were many 5-star generals, but 4-star Purple Gold Commanders could be counted on one's fingers. Especially in the human race, there wasn't a single 4-star Purple Gold Commander. Bang bang bang! Myriad Arrow King's group of 6 also attacked. All of them had the strength of a half-step emperor. How could these demon kings resist? In an instant, hundreds of demon kings died miserably in the starry sky. Quickly run! Less than 300 demon kings remained, and they immediately scattered in all directions. Don't chase. Yi Chen stopped Yuan Hong. Millions of li away, numerous evil kings flew over. The remaining demon kings mixed in with these evil kings, and the leader was clearly a general with a cultivation base of 7th layer life and death realm. Everyone, be careful. Let's enter the battleship first. Yi Chen said. The Myriad Arrow Monarch nodded. The current situation was different from before. Previously, they had caught the Devil race off guard. Before they had even left the light yellow planet, they had killed 90% of the Devil Kings in one fell swoop. The evil spirit race's numbers were not inferior to the Devil races, so it was impossible for them to kill 90% of the evil kings like before. Therefore, a bloody battle was inevitable. Without any hesitation, the 7 entered their respective battleships, choosing large ones. Only in the battleship did they not fear the soul attacks of the numerous evil kings. Once 20,000 evil kings joined hands and launched a soul attack, even an 8th layer life and death titled monarch would die. Even 9th layer life and death supremes wouldn't choose to face it head-on, because defending against soul attacks would consume soul power. The battleship's function was to isolate the enemy's soul detection, making it impossible for the enemy to lock onto their souls. This way, even if the enemy launched a soul attack, it would at most pass through the battleship, unable to injure them. Even if the enemy launched a few soul attacks, it wouldn't be a big deal. Attack! Inside Dijianghao, Yi Chen controlled Dijianghao and Phantom to bombard the densely packed evil kings. Huge sparks immediately blossomed, each taking away a few lives. A single volley killed at least several hundred evil kings. Myriad Arrow King's group's efficiency was much lower. The Heavenly King-grade battleship's offensive power was far inferior to an Emperor-grade battleship. Killing 20 to 30 evil kings in a single volley was already pretty good. However, the 6 of them added up to more than 100. Phantom had 24 puppet cannons, 2 of which were main cannons. Dijianghao, on the other hand, had 72 puppet cannons with 6 main cannons. Normally, the power of the main cannons wasn't much greater than other puppet cannons, but the value of the main cannons lay in the fact that they could continuously accumulate Keystone's energy. When the Keystone's energy was accumulated to the limit, a single shot would be more than 10 times more powerful than other puppet cannons, with astonishing destructive power. Boom boom, 8 consecutive explosions rang out, and 8 incredibly large sparks exploded among the densely packed evil kings. The largest spark took away the lives of more than 100 evil kings. Damn it! Everyone, spread out and surround them! The demonic Clothed Arch was a 3-star general in the evil spirit race's army. He was much stronger than the demon Scorpion Emperor, so he wasn't afraid of Yi Chen. However, he didn't have that many keystones to buy a large monarch warship, and a small monarch warship's firepower was far inferior to Yi Chen's Dijianghao. Not to mention, Yi Chen still had the Phantom. If his small monarch warship was destroyed in battle, he wouldn't even have a place to cry. Although the small monarch warship's offensive power was strong, it was still much weaker than his own body. It was useless to take it out. Let's attack this monarch warship together. How could the demonic Cloth Arch not know that Yi Chen posed the greatest threat? Gathering nearly 20,000 evil kings might be able to kill Yi Chen in one fell swoop, but 20,000 soul attacks were densely packed. It was impossible to dodge all of them. After all, the puppet warship was only so big. Soul-dispersing claw. The demonic Cloth Arch took the initiative to launch a soul attack at Yi Chen. His soul attack was a malevolent claw formed from soul power. It ferociously shot toward Dijianghao. Dijianghao's defensive cover couldn't block the soul attack at all, and it was practically useless. Yi Chen had long since used a soul defense secret art, Immortal Primordial Spirit. Pop, pop, pop. Sure enough, out of the 20,000 soul attacks, several hundred hit him. If not for his soul being far stronger than ordinary people, and his immortal primordial spirit was not an ordinary soul defense art, his soul would have been heavily injured. Not dead. The demonic Claw Thearcha's face turned increasingly unsightly. In his opinion, out of the 20,000 soul attacks, at least several hundred had hit Yi Chen. Unexpectedly, Yi Chen was unscathed. Again. Most life and death kings could generally launch 3 soul attacks, leaving 2 more chances. The second time, Yi Chen felt a bit dizzy. This time, he had suffered more than 600 soul attacks, causing his sea of soul to surge with raging waves. Even his immortal primordial spirit's defense was nearly shattered. Seems like I'll have to exchange for an even better soul defense secret art in the future. Yi Chen didn't lack yuan stones at the moment. He could spend 100 million yuan stones to exchange for 100 million army contribution points. 100 million contribution points was not a small amount. Exchanging for a soul defense secret art 10 times more powerful than immortal primordial spirit wouldn't be a problem. Otherwise, even 9th layer life and death supremes wouldn't dare to act recklessly in a battle between armies without a good soul defense secret art. The third soul attack arrived. Pung! Yi Chen felt as if something had exploded in his head. His sea of soul was turned upside down, and his immortal primordial spirit's defensive cover instantly collapsed. Touching his nose, blood flowed out. So close. Soon, Yi Chen recovered, but he still felt a lingering fear. Once a soul attack reached a certain scale, even if its individual might wasn't that great, it could still trigger a chain reaction. For example, a thick wall might not be damaged after a single strike, but after several hundred strikes, the wall would collapse. At this moment, he deeply felt the importance of a soul defense secret art. Humph! With a cold snort, Yi Chen continued to control Dijianghao and Phantom to bombard the evil kings. In such a short time, he had already consumed more than 10 million yuan stones, but he didn't care. Impossible! The evil Claw Emperor was incomparably shocked and furious. Yi Chen had actually endured. Could he have cultivated an Emperor-grade soul defense secret art? But an Emperor-grade soul defense secret art couldn't be cultivated in a short time. It would take at least several hundred years or even 1,000 years. Right, he had almost forgotten that Yi Chen had the strength of a 4-star purple-gold commander. He was definitely a member of Paradise of God, which had the Time Tower, which could shorten time by 100 times. Little did he know that the Yuan Spirit Indestructible was only a Heavenly King's soul defense secret art, and an ordinary one at that. It was all because Yi Chen's soul was strong enough and vigorous enough. Have a taste of a soul attack too. Inside Dijianghao, Yi Chen locked onto the evil Claw Emperor's soul and shot out a soul sword chi. Not good. The evil Claw Emperor staggered, his face pale. Yi Chen's soul sword chi was too sharp. Fortunately, He had only used the Soul Crusher Claw once before, or he would have died without a doubt. Almost subconsciously, the evil Claw Emperor took out a small Emperor-grade warship and instantly dived in. Quite the reaction speed. Although Yi Chen felt it was a bit of a pity, he knew how difficult it was to destroy a monarch's soul with a single strike. In the end, his soul sword chi could only be considered a peak Heavenly King soul attack secret art. Boom, 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 boom. The sound of cannon fire rang out continuously, and one evil king after another was obliterated. Alas, the evil kings were too scattered, and killing two with a single shot was already good luck. Most of the time, only one could be killed, while the myriad Arrow Monarch's 6 Heavenly King-grade warships needed 10 shots to kill one. 15 million, 20 million, 25 million, 30 million. 60 rounds of cannon fire consumed Yi Chen's 30 million key stones. At this time, key stones were practically worthless. Moreover, these 60 rounds of cannon fire weren't without any harvest. In total, they killed around 10,000 evil kings. In addition to the 3,000 evil kings killed by the myriad Arrow Monarch and the others, there were less than 7,000 evil kings left. Damn, we can't waste any more time. The evil Claw Emperor was incomparably frustrated. They could no longer continue their soul attacks, and their martial arts attacks couldn't break through the Emperor-grade and Heavenly King-grade warships' defenses in a short time. He was also being held back by Yi Chen, and the small Emperor-grade warship was sent flying again and again. 3 of the enemy's main cannons were aimed at him. After losing nearly 1,000 evil kings, the evil Claw Emperor knew that they had failed. If they didn't retreat now, they would have to pay an even greater price. Retreat. The evil Claw Emperor finally gave the order to retreat. The surviving evil kings were overjoyed. They had wanted to retreat for a long time. The enemy was like a turtle shell. How was this a battle? This was practically suicide. Soon, all the evil kings retreated. As for the demon kings, they were almost ignored. That was too dangerous. The myriad Arrow Monarch and the others walked out. The Emperor-grade warship is still the best. Its defenses are strong enough. Lu Di nodded. Although their Heavenly King-grade warships were the best, they couldn't withstand countless attacks. If it weren't for the fact that the evil kings had to dodge their cannons and lose a batch every once in a while, they wouldn't have been able to hold on at all. Their defensive barriers were breached several times, and the warship's surface was warped and damaged. Thank you, everyone. Yi Chen put away Di Jianghao and Phantom's ship as he expressed his gratitude. No need to thank me. When we reach Elysium, just bring us around the world. Sima Fei smiled. Definitely. Yi Chen nodded. Without the evil kings and demon kings, the 7 of them flew toward the primal chaos vortex. A short while later, the 7 of them arrived in a different starry sky. We're finally back. Yi Chen took a deep breath. This feeling was as if he had returned home. There were too many memories and stories here. Fallout Sword Sect. Within a secret room, Yi Chen stood up with a smile. He could sense his main body. Chapter 1139. The leader is out of his seclusion. On the main peak of the Fallen Dust Sword Sect, Yi Chen landed on the plaza. After so many years of development, the Fallen Dust Sword Sect had grown to a huge scale, with more than 100,000 people. There were a lot of elders and disciples walking around the plaza. Leader! Greetings, leader. On the way, everyone greeted him respectfully. The leader in front of them was the real leader's consciousness body, but for the others, it was no different. The consciousness body was the same as the real leader's clone. Sitting on the main seat of the meeting hall, Yi Chen ordered, "Gather all the core elders of the Fallen Dust Sword Sect. Also, notify the Murong family, Dragon God Celestial Palace, and the mysterious Martial School." Yes. Hundreds of attendants took the order and left. Soon, the first batch of people arrived. It was Yi Tianhao, Shen Yuqing, Yi Xian, Yi Xiaoxiao, and Yi Chen's 4 disciples. Master! The 4 disciples greeted him respectfully and stood aside. Big brother. Yi Xian and Yi Xiaoxiao looked a lot more mature, no longer looking like a teenager. Xin Yuqing asked, Chinra, I heard that you wanted to gather everyone in the Fallen Dust Sword sect. Did something happen? Could it be the revival of the foreign races? Yi Tianhao started to guess. Yi Chen smiled. I'm back. Back? Could it be? Yi Xian and Yi Xiaoxiao's eyes flashed with excitement as they looked at Yi Chen. Yi Chen nodded slightly. Great. Yi Tianhao and Xin Yuqing looked at each other, their faces full of smiles. The 4 disciples were also very happy but also very nervous. Although the Yi Chen in front of them looked no different from the real Yi Chen, there were still some differences in nature. He was not as quick-witted as Yi Chen and did not show much emotion. As time went by, this became more and more obvious. Even Yi Xian and Yi Xiaoxiao were a bit restrained in front of Yi Chen. In short, they looked weird. According to Xianhou, although the spiritual consciousness was split from the original body, as time went by, it would gradually change, which meant that it would become a second self, not a complete copy. The second group of people were the pillars of the Sky Cloud Martial School, including Luo Hanzhan, Zhu Mei, Zhang Haoran, and so on. Grandmaster. Lu Hanzhan and the others cupped their fists. The third group, the fourth group. Soon, the conference hall was filled with people. Almost all of the core members of the Falling Dust Sword School had arrived. Soon, people from the Murong family and the Dragon God's Celestial Palace had also arrived. The Murong family, the Dragon God's Celestial Palace, and the Falling Dust Sword School were all connected by a teleportation array. The Murong family was led by Murong Zhishui and Murong Qingqing, while the Dragon God's Celestial Palace was led by Su Jing and the headmaster. The last group to arrive were Xianhou, Yan Qingxian, and Yan Fengfeng. Everyone, follow me. Yi Chen walked out of the conference hall, with Murong Qingqing and Su Jing following beside him. The 2 looked excited, expectant, and a bit nervous. On the plaza, Yi Chen raised his head and looked at the sky. Is he finally coming back? Xianhou let out a breath. Yi Chen was already a legend in Elysium. Even the ancient people paled in comparison. His reputation was already on the same level as ancient Emperor and Qi Tiandi. Although the 2 had more achievements than him, Yi Chen was younger and more talented. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was the #1 genius in the history. In the past few years, it was not that Xianhou and the others hadn't gone through the path of death. Unfortunately, each time they returned in failure. The most recent time was 3 years ago, and the scale of that time was extremely large. Xianhou, Su Jing, Murong Qingqing, Duguju, Dantai Mingwei, Snow Sword of Gojoseon, Star Sword King, Su King, and many other Peak Kings had gathered. But the scale of the enemy was even larger, and their experts surpassed that of Yi Chen's. More than 100 Peak Kings had died in the path of death. It was a heavy loss. They had to admit that without external help, they would probably never be able to leave Elysium in this lifetime. Once the enemy was on their guard, they would not be given a chance. Su Jing and Murong Qingqing were also looking up at the sky, waiting for him in their hearts. The wind howled and lightning flashed. A mysterious and powerful warship tore through space and appeared in the sky above the Fallout Sword sect. On the plaza, everyone seemed to have stopped breathing. They did not even blink. The cabin door opened and a person walked out. It was not Yi Chen. It was a golden-haired, stocky young man. This is Elysium. Although the space is fragile, it is quite special. Yuan Hong stood in midair and took a deep breath of Elysium's air. So powerful! Xianhou, Murong Qingqing, and Su Jing's pupils shrank. The moment this person appeared, it was as if he had become the center of the world. Even the space could not withstand his aura and kept shattering with crackling sounds. Fourth sky of life and death realm? Fifth sky? Or sixth sky? Xuanhou's current cultivation base was at the third sky of life and death realm. In Elysium, The third sky of life and death realm was already the peak, and one could not go any further. Yuan Hong's appearance shocked her. He was like a ferocious beast in the mortal world. Just a trace of his aura was enough to give people a heavy pressure. It was hard to imagine what would happen if he used his full power. Even more frightening than the sixth sky of life and death realm. Su Jing stared at Yuan Hong. As a demonic beast, she could feel the gap between them. However, she could faintly feel that Yuan Hong was even more frightening than the sixth sky demon king and evil king. As for how much more frightening, it was hard to tell. It was not just a gap in cultivation base, but more of a gap in willpower and absolute strength. What a beautiful world! Zhang Yining, Sima Fei, Lu Wenjie, Lu Di and Thousand Arrow King walked out one after another. The six of them stood side by side, releasing an aura that seemed to look down on the whole world. Since they were not from Elysium, this aura was spread out by Elysium. Even if they were separated by thousands of mountains and rivers, this aura could not be hidden. All of a sudden, all the kings on True Spirit Continent became vigilant. One after another, they came out of seclusion and stopped cultivating. This aura was too frightening, even more frightening than the aura of the outsiders. Back then, the aura of the outsiders had covered the sky and the earth, and was much more powerful than this aura. However, in terms of aura, it was not even 1% of this aura. The wild Yuan Hong, the beautiful Zhang Yining, the sinister Sima Fei, the cold Lu Wenjie, the bold Lu Di, and the hidden leader of the group, the Thousand Arrow King. The appearance of these six people made the sun lose its color. It was as if the entire world had become their home field, existing only for their existence. Everything became a foil for them. Even the great formation of the Fallen Dust Sword sect stopped operating. Who are these people? At this moment, the Fallen Dust Sword sect seemed to be facing a great enemy. Haha, everyone, long time no see. A voice was heard. In the next moment, a blue-robed youngster walked out of the battleship and stood in front of Thousand Arrow King and the other five. His appearance instantly suppressed the myriad Arrow King and the others. This suppression wasn't intentional, but rather natural. The center of heaven and earth shifted from the myriad Arrow King and the others to the blue-robed young man. The feeling he gave off wasn't pressure, but rather the will of heaven and earth. Heaven and earth wouldn't suppress them. Chapter 1140. It was Yi Chen, the #1 swordsman of Elysium since the dawn of time. Yi Chen. Sovereign. Yi Chen. Chen. Yi Chen's appearance caused an uproar. The oppressive atmosphere caused by the myriad Arrow Monarchs group of 6 suddenly disappeared without a trace. Everyone's gaze was focused on him. Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing cried tears of joy. After 10 years, they finally saw their son. At this moment, they were already very satisfied. Among so many gazes, the 2 most passionate and tender gazes belonged to Murong Qingqing and Su Jing. Yi Chen's gaze met with theirs, conveying his longing. Feeling the gentleness in Yi Chen's gaze, Murong Qingqing's eyes became even more radiant, as beautiful as spring water, while Su Jing's eyes were also filled with infinite tenderness. Walking to the square, Yi Chen's consciousness projection automatically merged with Yi Chen's body. Yi Chen held Murong Qingqing and Su Jing's hands. Both of their hands were very soft. Su Jing's hand slightly stiffened, but she immediately held it tightly. Father, mother. Yi Chen held the 2 of them and walked in front of Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing. It's good that you're back. Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing looked at the 3 of them with overflowing smiles. Letting go of their hands, Yi Chen hugged Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing. After so many years, they were separated more often than not, but their familial love would never turn cold because of distance. Big brother! Yi Xian and Yi Xiaoxiao walked over. Yi Chen looked at the 2 of them and said with a smile, "The little ones have grown up and matured." When he left, Yi Xian and Yi Xiaoxiao were only in their 20s. Now they were in their 30s. Among ordinary people, they were already middle-aged. Of course, with their late Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, they still maintained their youthful appearance. Big brother, now that you're back, will you leave again? Yi Xiaoxiao looked at Yi Chen hopefully. Yi Chen smiled. Yes, but I will take you with me. Really? Their eyes lit up. Of course it's true. When has Big Brother ever lied to you? Soon after, Yi Chen's gaze landed on his 4 disciples. These 4 disciples of his had astonishing achievements, and all of them had reached the life and death realm. Especially Lung Xinghan, who had reached the peak of the 2nd sky of life and death realm. The other 3 were at the 1st sky of life and death realm. Of course, this had something to do with the resources the Falling Dust Sword sect had, but it also had something to do with their talent. Good, not bad. Your progress has astonished me. Yi Chen praised. Many thanks for the praise, master. The 4's tone was respectful. However, cultivation base doesn't mean everything. Tomorrow I'll test your strength. Yi Chen was clear that the lack of life and death experience would have a huge impact on a person. At the same realm, they might not be the opponents of Duguju and the others. This was the foundation. Zhang Haoran had also broken through to life and death realm. Among the disciples of the same generation in Sky Cloud sect, Zhang Haoran's talent and comprehension were only second to Yi Chen's. Such progress didn't come as a surprise to Yi Chen. As for Lu Hanshan and Zhu Mei, they were still lacking. Both of them were at the peak of late Sea of Soul Realm, and had just comprehended the Death Dao. You've been gone for quite a long time. Lu Hanshan sighed. 10 years is not a long time. Our lives have just begun. Yi Chen didn't think that Lu Hanshan couldn't become a life and death king. It was only a matter of time. Once he became a life and death king, his lifespan would reach 100,000 years. Compared to 100,000 years, 10 years was nothing. You're right. Lu Hanshan faintly nodded. Senior Yen, long time no see. Yi Chen could tell that Xuanho's aura was many times more powerful than 10 years ago. Seriously speaking, Xuanho's talent and comprehension were not inferior to Duguju's, and might even surpass him. However, she had learned a lot of things, and didn't put all of her effort into improving her strength. For example, she was proficient in detoxification, sealing formations, and aura gazing. Although these didn't seem to have much effect on one's strength, they could turn the situation around in a critical moment. Life and Death Kings had a lifespan of 100,000 years. In the early stages, Xuanho's strength would be affected by distraction, but in the later stages, her comprehensive strength would very likely reach the peak. The mysterious Tao didn't care about momentary strength. The outside world should be very spectacular, right? Xianhou asked curiously. Yi Chen said, the outside world is very, very vast and boundless. Humans and beasts live in the 4 great life star regions. Each star region has thousands of life planets, and the population of each planet is in the hundreds of billions. Some of the planets' population is even 10 times or 100 times more than Elysium's population. In between the 4 great life star regions, there is the God's Paradise, a paradise built by the true gods. Inside, one's progress would be tremendous. Yi Chen briefly explained the outside world. It's just as I imagined. Elysium is only a small part of the world. The outside world is even more wonderful. Xuanho's eyes shone brightly. True gods, what are those things? Yan Fengfeng asked curiously. Yi Chen explained, above life and death realm is the true gods. True gods are omnipotent. They can turn stone into gold and change the rules. But they can't descend into the universe with their real bodies. They can only slightly affect the universe. So there are true gods. So powerful. Yan Fengfeng was fascinated. Everyone, follow me to the conference palace. I'll tell you about the outside world, then you can decide if you want to leave Elysium with me and go to the outside world. Yi Chen took the lead and walked into the conference palace. Everyone followed behind. The news of Yi Chen's return to Elysium spread among the Life and Death Kings within a couple of days. A lot of Life and Death Kings immediately rushed to the South Rudra region's Falling Dust Sword sect. They wanted to see how powerful Yi Chen had become, as well as hear him talk about the outside world. For them, the outside world was a mystery, full of temptation. Yi Chen is back. A bright light shot out of Chu Zhongtian's eyes. Spirit King Chu Zhongtian was Chu Zhongtian's king warrior title. In the whole of Elysium, besides Duguju and Su Jing, there were not many who could compete with him. Xianhou was one, and the snow sword of Gojoseon was another. Especially with the appearance of the Savage Stones, a lot of Life and Death King's power had increased drastically, and Chu Zhongtian was one of them. Yi Chen. Duguju had also received the news of Yi Chen's return. Right now, he had already experienced the loneliness of being at the top. Although Su Jing was powerful, in terms of comprehensive ability, she was still a bit weaker than him. The training on the Desolate Star had made his blade arts reach a mysterious level, and his power was much more powerful than Yi Chen's back then. King warriors who were weaker than him in the past could hardly take a single blade attack from him now. The Solitary Blade King was his king warrior title, and it also represented his loneliness. Shoo! His body flashed once as Duguju tore apart the space and disappeared from where he was standing. Boiling, the whole Elysium King Warrior Circle was boiling. Chapter 1141. Ever since the entrance to Elysium had been sealed, there had been quite a few who had managed to leave Elysium. Those who had fought their way out could be counted on two hands, and the only one who had returned was Yi Chen. Almost every king wanted to see how much Yi Chen had changed and how big the gap between them was. Drifting Sword Sect, Spirit Cloud Peak. Yi Chen was currently considering how much his 4 disciples had improved in the past 10 years. First was the sparring between the eldest disciple, Yan Jianhui, and the third disciple, Huang Sumei. As the eldest disciple, Yan Jianhui's sword arts were filled with spirituality. His self-created wind sword art and water sword art had touched upon the essence of wind and water profound. Although the wind and water profound martial art was still immature to the point that it was full of flaws, with Yi Chen's eyesight, he could tell at a glance that it would be very powerful after reaching the large success stage and had a lot of room for improvement. As for Yan Jianhui's sword intent, it was not weak either, having reached the peak of the 4th step. Only his sword domain was slightly weaker, at the peak of the 1st level. Huang Sumei was the most intelligent amongst the 4 great disciples. Her sword arts gave off an extremely nimble feeling, and there were practically no flaws. She was adept at playing to her strengths and avoiding her weaknesses, using her strengths to attack her enemies' weaknesses. But comparatively speaking, Huang Sumei's sword intent and sword domain were both slightly lower. Her sword intent was at the 4th rank, while her sword domain was at the 1st level. What she lacked wasn't comprehension ability, but the tempering of life and death, the sublimation of her character. All in all, the two's improvements were very gratifying. Based on Elysium's strength, Yan Jianhui was roughly at the peak of the 3rd star, while Huang Sumei was at the 3rd star. Next was the sparring between the 2nd disciple, Dongfang Bai, and the 4th disciple, Ling Xinghan. Dongfang Bai's sword arts were very impressive and had the style of a master. In terms of sword arts comprehension, Yan Jianhui and Huang Sumei were much weaker than him. Yi Chen was very satisfied with Dongfang Bai. He had already found his own path and didn't need Yi Chen to spur him on. This kind of disciple was the most worry-free disciple. Of the 4 disciples, the most amazing was the 4th disciple, Ling Xinghan. Ling Xinghan was the peak in all aspects and didn't have any weaknesses. In terms of quality, he might not be able to surpass Yan Jianhui, Dongfang Bai, and Huang Sumei, but overall, Ling Xinghan was much stronger than the other 3. Dongfang Bai was probably at the peak of the 4th star, while Ling Xinghan was at the peak of the 4th star. It was all thanks to Yi Chen that these 4 disciples were able to reach the life and death realm in their 30s. Back then, Yi Chen had forcefully pushed his cultivation to the 3rd sky of the life and death realm, which had caused the rules of Elysium to be modified a bit. This way, the Sea of Souls realm warriors in Elysium would be able to reach the life and death realm more easily. Of course, it was only relatively speaking. Reaching the life and death realm was extremely hard for normal people, and even for the top martial geniuses, it would be extremely difficult, not to mention reaching the life and death realm in their 30s. After giving some advice to his disciples, Yi Chen suddenly lifted up his head. A guest had arrived. It was the Spirit King, Chu Zhongtian. Haha, Yi Chen, long time no see. The red-haired Chu Zhongtian looked extremely domineering as he stood in the sky of the falling dust, sword sect like a god. His gaze landed on Yi Chen, and an intense battle intent burst out. Chu Zhongtian, how have you been? Yi Chen smiled lightly. I know that I am not your opponent, but I can't help but want to learn from you, Chu Zhongtian said without beating around the bush. He was very clear that with Yi Chen's power, even 10 of him would not be able to compete with him. However, this was not a competition of power, but a competition of martial arts achievements. If the gap was not that big, then he might have a chance to catch up. But, if the gap was 10 times or even 100 times, then it would be a bit hard. Sure. Yi Chen nodded. Shoo. No one could see Yi Chen's movement. Within a second, Yi Chen appeared in the sky, right in front of Chu Zhongtian. Chu Zhongtian was slightly stunned. He actually could not see through Yi Chen's movement trajectory. It seemed that he had underestimated him. Good, this is more like it. Chu Zhongtian's battle intent surged even more, and his red hair danced in the air. After preparing for a few breaths, Chu Zhongtian released his ultimate move. Boom! With a swing of his mace, an extremely ferocious red lion charged at Yi Chen. This move was called Furious Lion Strike, and it combined 2 great profounds. When used with his domineering great origin, it was almost indestructible. Even Duguju had to take it seriously, and other weaker king tiers would be insta-killed in one move. Not bad. Yi Chen nodded in his heart. Chu Zhongtian's Furious Lion Strike was already close to a peak level 2 martial art. Combined with his great origin, its power was not any weaker than a peak level 2 martial art. It seemed that he had had many fortuitous encounters in the past 10 years. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for him to comprehend 2 great profounds to perfection and create Furious Lion Strike. The red lion bared its fangs and brandished its claws, roaring continuously. Facing Chu Zhongtian's ultimate move, Yi Chen's expression did not change as he pointed out his finger. Seeing this, Chu Zhongtian frowned. He could tell that Yi Chen had controlled his cultivation to be at the 3rd sky of life and death realm, which was even weaker than his own 3rd sky of life and death realm great origin. Under such circumstances, he actually chose to use one finger to resist his full power attack. Was he confident, or was he arrogant? Pup! The next second, Chu Zhongtian realized that he was wrong. Yi Chen was not arrogant, but absolutely confident. The moment his Furious Lion Strike made contact with Yi Chen's finger, it instantly collapsed. There was no threat at all. This kind of gap was something that even he himself could not estimate. It was at least 100 times more. Master is so powerful. Huang Sumei's eyes sparkled with excitement. Of course, Master is the most powerful. Yan Jianhui continued. The current Elysium was not the same as before. In the past, the most powerful warriors were the older generation king warriors like Su King. But now, it was the new generation king warriors like Chu Zhongtian from Duguju. However, even someone as powerful as Chu Zhongtian could not block one finger attack from their master. It was not hard to imagine how powerful their master was. Dongfang Bai was completely immersed in that finger attack of Yi Chen's. Within that finger attack, he saw a peerless sword art. Unfortunately, with his eyesight, he could only see a tiny bit of it. Even so, it was already enough to shock him to the core. Ling Xinghan was even more serious than Dongfang Bai. But the more serious he was, the more vague his impression became. As a disciple of Yi Chen, it was not that Ling Xinghan did not want to compete with Yi Chen. Any disciple would want to surpass their master, and he was no exception. Unfortunately, he had to admit that he had to work 10 times harder. The outside world said that Ling Xinghan was a peerless genius and was not inferior to Duguju. But they were all living in the era of Yi Chen, the #1 swordsman of all ages. This was a publicly acknowledged fact. Chu Zhongtian, it seems like your strength has not improved much in the past 3 years. At this moment, a silhouette flew over from afar. It was the white-haired Duguju. Chapter 1142. Dugu Blade King Duguju had indeed been lonely all these years. When a person reached the peak, without an opponent, his improvement would slow down. Only a truly powerful opponent could stimulate him to reach the next level and continue to break through. Be it Xianhou, Su Jing, Chu Zhongtian, or Snow Sword of Gojoseon, they might be able to compete with him in terms of strength, but for some reason, he could not find any passion in them. Perhaps it had something to do with his blade intent. The blade intent of despair needed to be pressured in order to bring out its full potential. Yi Chen. Carrying a long blade on his back, the white-haired Duguju looked at Yi Chen. Duguju. Yi Chen was also feeling his opponent's blade intent. Chu Zhongtian moved to the side and said to Duguju, I would like to see if you have improved more than me in these 3 years. Don't talk big. Whether I am talking big or not, you will know very soon. I hope so. Just now, Chu Zhongtian had not actually used his full strength. He still had a follow-up move of the Furious Lion Strike, Furious Lion Dance. However, Yi Chen had broken it cleanly, so he could not use the follow-up move. Yi Chen, take this. Duguju did not waste any time. He pulled out the long blade on his back with his right hand. The blade shone brightly, and he quickly swung it at Yi Chen. The power of this attack was not the main thing, but it was as fast as lightning. He raised his right index and middle finger, and a sword light shot out. He raised it slightly, and the sword light hit the lightning blade light. The broken blade light made Yi Chen's face look pale. Dugujue, what kind of power do you have? Bring it all out. Yi Chen strolled toward Duguju. As you wish. Lotus Chop. Duguju leaped high into the air, gripped his saber with both hands, and slashed down. In an instant, countless saber lights bloomed, forming a chilling lotus, and in the center of the lotus was Yi Chen. He actually managed to create the Lotus Chop. No wonder he's so confident. Chu Zhongtian's expression turned slightly solemn. 3 years ago, Duguju was still unable to fully display the Lotus Chop. He only had a few petals. Now, the Lotus Chop had reached perfection. Even if one's strength was higher than Duguju's, he would still suffer a great loss. Chu Zhongtian wondered how Yi Chen would deal with it. Inside the lotus, Yi Chen's expression did not change. With his ability, he could forcefully break the lotus flower chop. This was not a difficult thing to do. On the contrary, it was very easy. However, he wanted to see where the limits of Duguju were. Clang! Clang! The sword fingers danced in an orderly manner, and rays of sword light burst forth. Any saber light that was 1 zhang away from Yi Chen was instantly destroyed by the sword light. The 1 zhang around Yi Chen seemed to have become an absolute domain. Neither water nor wind could enter. The real killer move should be coming. Yi Chen was keenly aware that the saber intent of this move had not been used up yet. Just as expected, after the saber lights were destroyed, beams of dazzling saber lights quietly bloomed. These saber lights were not big, but they were very fine, as if they were formed by the essence of countless saber chi and had undergone a qualitative change. This is... Chu Zhongtian's pupils shrank. It's the lotus stamen. Yi Chen had seen through the mystery of this blade attack. The sword light between Yi Chen's fingers turned from hard to soft, looking like a ribbon. As he waved his fingers, the ribbon sword light spun around Yi Chen once, blocking out all of the incoming blade light, making it hard for him to move forward. Even the flower stamen chop doesn't help? After the lotus flower chop was the flower stamen chop. With the power of the flower stamen chop, Duguju dared to challenge Yi Chen. He did not expect the flower stamen chop to be seen through. This is more interesting. Pushing the despair saber intent to the limit, Duguju's saber art changed again. The lotus flowers withered and the stamen withered. The decaying aura devoured the vitality, turning into a gray saber light, and slashed at Yi Chen. Decaying saber. In the past, this saber had some flaws. Now, under the pressure of Yi Chen, this saber was close to perfection. Ordinary people would have the illusion that their bodies and souls were decaying just by looking at it, let alone facing this saber. Good move. Yi Chen's eyes brightened. This saber not only contained the wood profound and water profound, but also a trace of the death profound. Duguju was indeed worthy of being Duguju. If he had enough time, it would not be hard for him to create a true third transformation saber art. It seemed like the savage stone and the desolate star had allowed some of the top warriors to make breakthroughs. Now I can be a bit more serious. Still controlling his Zhen Yuan at the third sky of life and death realm, Yi Chen's right hand's sword light quickly changed into a fiery red color. Second transformation, extreme sword art, burning spring burning fire. Shoo! The sword light shot out, clashing with the decaying saber light. With a puff sound, the decaying saber light turned into burning sparks, splashing everywhere. Yi Chen's fiery red sword light shot straight at Duguju. Break for me! Duguju held his saber with both of his hands and slashed at the fiery red saber light. However, the red saber light was extremely condensed. Not only did Duguju fail to shatter the sword light, but he was also blown away by the huge rebounding force. Fortunately, this saber attack had slightly changed the direction of the fiery red sword light, and it landed in a 1,000 li away mountain range. That mountain range immediately turned into a sea of fire, and a 10 li thick sword mark extended all the way to the edge of the horizon. When his eyes opened and closed, starlight flickered, giving off an unfathomable feeling. As for Su Jing and Murong Qingqing, it was needless to say. Su Jing was noble and cold, dressed in white, and her eyes had a trace of gold. Murong Qingqing's figure was extremely enchanting, and her curves were perfect. In terms of physique, no one could compare to her. In terms of appearance, she was devastatingly beautiful. In terms of temperament, there was a trace of demoness temperament. There were only a few dark demonesses among the demons. Murong Qingqing had combined the bloodline of the human race and the dark demoness, gathering the essence of both in her body. In today's era, Lung Xinghan and the others were considered rookies, and the outstanding ones were actually not inferior to Yi Chen's generation back then. It was a pity that Yi Chen's era was the worst era, but it was also the best era. There would only be pressure when there was competition. The current Elysium was too comfortable, and there was a lack of life and death competitions. In summary, Yi Chen's era was one of the most brilliant eras in the entire history of Elysium, and it was hard for the latecomers to surpass it. Chapter 1143. Yi Chen, can you tell us about the outside world? Yi Chen's return gave everyone the opportunity to go out, but most of them were still curious. The one who spoke was Dantai Mingyue. The outside world should be very intense, Chu Zhongtian also said. Faintly nodding, Yi Chen said, the outside world is filled with experts. Only by reaching the 7th layer of life and death realm can one be considered a titled monarch. The 9th layer is the supreme. However, the gap between the 6th layer and the 7th layer is very difficult to cross. Only by condensing the monarch's imprint can one have any hope of breaking through. Monarch's imprint? Lan Sanmei looked at Yi Chen. Yi Chen explained, I believe you've already entered the selfless realm, which has 3 stages. The first stage is the ordinary stage, and the second stage has two paths: selfless body and selfless heavenly eye. The third stage is the selfless emperor. If one breaks through the selfless emperor realm, one can condense the monarch's imprint. Selfless heavenly eye. Snow Sword of Gojoseon was walking on the path of selfless heavenly eye. Of course, it was only the early stage, while Doguju had already reached the mid-stage. As for the secret of selfless realm, it was also revealed by the titled King Palace's palace spirit, which seemed to know everything. Unexpectedly, one needed to condense the monarch's imprint above selfless realm. In the universe, demons are the number one race, followed by humans, Yaksha race, giant race, evil spirit race, and other races. Humans reside in the four great life starfields: Azure Dragon Starfield, White Tiger Starfield, Vermilion Bird Starfield, and Black Tortoise Starfield. Each of these starfields is enormous, containing countless stars. However, the life stars are the foundation. Each life star is filled with experts, and life and death kings number in the tens of thousands. Some life stars have even more people than Elysium. However, on life stars, the energy repulsion is extremely severe, and the destructive power of life and death kings is sharply reduced by thousands of times. Yi Chen narrated the matters of the outside world. Finally, Yi Chen talked about the Paradise of Gods. The Paradise of Gods has the God of War Pagoda, the Survival Pagoda, the Martial Skill Pagoda, the Hunting Pagoda, the Time Pagoda, and the Upanishad Pagoda. The God of War Pagoda is a place to test one's strength, and it has 10 floors in total. The Survival Pagoda is used to test one's survivability, and it also has 10 floors. The Martial Skill Pagoda is used to practice martial arts. The Hunting Pagoda is used to fight against other members of the Paradise of True Gods, and the Time Pagoda is used to control the flow of time. Yi Chen, in your opinion, what level of strength do we belong to in the outside world? Asked Chu Zhongtian. After thinking for a while, Yi Chen said honestly, in the 4 major life star fields, there is a Heavenly King list. In order to enter the list, one must be under 50 years old, and there are only 100 spots. In my opinion, some of you should be able to enter the list, but I can't say for sure what their rankings are. Without the desolate planet, it would be very difficult for Doguju and the rest to enter the list. After all, it was a list of the top geniuses of the 4 major life star fields, and ordinary people really couldn't enter. Of course, as long as Doguju and the rest left Elysium, their cultivation base would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. At that time, it would be a different story. Then, Yi Chen, what is your strength in the Paradise of Gods? How many floors of the God of War Pagoda have you passed? The majority of the new kings of Elysium had arrived, including Yi Chen's 4 disciples and Zhang Haoran. The number of people had long since surpassed 100. Yen Fengfeng asked. 10th floor of the God of War Pagoda. 10th floor, seems very powerful. Yen Fengfeng wasn't too surprised. Yi Chen had always given them more shock. Yuan Hong interjected. How could I know it is? In order to enter the Paradise of Gods, one must be in the top 10 of the Heavenly King list. Under normal circumstances, the majority of people entering the Paradise of Gods only have the strength of the first floor. Those who can make it to the second floor are powerful characters, and those who can make it to the third floor are rare to see in 100 years. As for those who can make it to the 4th floor, Yi Chen is the only one. The higher the floor, the greater the gap. In the first few floors, the gap is only a few times, but in the later floors, the gap is at least 10 times. In the Paradise of Gods, those who can make it to the 9th floor have the strength of a half-emperor, which is very close to the strength of a titled monarch. Those who can make it to the 10th floor have the strength of a battle emperor, who can contend against titled monarchs. Yi Chen's strength has already reached peak battle emperor's strength, and it would be hard for him to find a match among titled monarchs. Peak battle emperor. Doguju's Snow Sword of Gojoseon and the rest turned silent. According to Yuan Hong, the gap between the first floor and the 10th floor was more than 100,000 times. Although this 100,000 times was a general concept, it didn't mean that every aspect had 100,000 times difference, but rather 100,000 times difference in quality. For example, sword intent, unveil realm, cultivation base, sword domain, and sword art. Each of them had a difference of 10 times, so it was 100,000 times difference. And this was only the lowest estimate. It should be even more. And among them, there were a few who could enter the Heavenly King list at most. They were far from even reaching the first floor of the God of War pagoda. The gap between them was unimaginably huge. Their guess was right. The gap between them and Yi Chen was indeed unimaginably huge. When Yi Chen fought against Chu Zhongtian and Duguju, apart from his third layer Jin Yuan, he didn't display much else. For example, sword domain, sword intent, and unveil realm. Even his sword arts were only slightly displayed. The might of raging fire incineration was not just this. Of course, the gap seemed huge, but there was no need to despair. Every aspect could be improved by a few times, and the gap between them could be reduced by a few hundred times. However, some aspects were easy to improve, such as martial arts, while others were hard to improve. Cultivation base only had 9 layers, and with each layer, one's strength would increase by several folds. Sword domain and sword intent were only at the 9th layer or 9th step, while unveil realm was divided into 3 stages. Therefore, to truly close the gap, martial arts were the most important. The other aspects would slowly catch up. After all, the higher one went, the harder it would be to improve, and the more time it would take. If one could create a 5th revolution martial art at the first layer of life and death realm, even titled monarchs would be killed in one move. The importance of martial arts could be seen from this. For Yi Chen to have his current strength, the 3rd revolution extreme sword art couldn't go unnoticed. What was worth noting was that although one's battle power was battle power, one's soul secret arts couldn't be weak either. If one's soul secret art was weak, even if the opponent's battle power was far below one's, they could still make one suffer. Everyone, we've come back this time to prepare to move a portion of our people to the outside world. The number should be around 3 million. My Falling Dust Sword sect has reserved 100,000. As for the remaining 2,900,000, you can discuss how to distribute them. Back then, the great calamity of the outsiders had brought 600 large king-grade warships to Elysium. Each warship could carry 5,000 people, so 600 meant 3 million people. Apart from a few that were left as a precaution, the rest were used to carry people. After all, Yi Chen also had 14 warships. The Falling Dust Sword sect's population exceeded 100,000. Adding the family members of the sect members, the number was estimated to be in the millions or even tens of millions. Many of them had their own clans, and the population of a clan was incalculable. However, Yi Chen didn't intend to move the entire sect. He intended to move a portion of the people while the rest would remain in Elysium. After all, Elysium was also a world with a population in the trillions. Geniuses would appear from time to time, and if all of them moved, it would mean losing a place to develop. According to Yi Chen's plan, 100,000 people should be enough. Among them, the Falling Dust Sword sect had 10 to 20,000 people, and the rest were the family members of these 10 to 20,000 people. The rest would continue to develop here. In any case, they would move again in the future. Every once in a while, they would move a batch of people. The first batch would develop in Sparrowflower City, building a good foundation for the later generations. This is not a small matter. We need to think about it at length. Many people frowned, thinking about how many people they should take and how many people they could take with them. I'll give you 1 month to plan. After 1 month, you must come to an agreement. Yi Chen nodded. This was indeed not a small matter. There were too many powers in Elysium, and there were too many people involved. Who wouldn't want to take more people with them? After thinking about it, Yi Chun decided to give them 1 month. It would take 8 months for the King-grade warship to go back and forth, so he still had 4 months to stay. Including this month, there were still 3 months left. Sky Sword Continent. Yi Chun arrived near the Sky Sword. The Sky Sword's origin was mysterious, and the sword world inside was even more mysterious. For the current Yi Chun, it was still very useful. All 4 of Yi Chun's disciples had gone through the sword world. According to Yi Chun's speculation, the 7th to 10th levels of the sword world corresponded to the 1st level of the sword domain. The 11th to 14th levels corresponded to the 2nd level of the sword domain. The 15th to 18th levels corresponded to the 3rd level of the sword domain. The 19th to 22nd levels corresponded to the 4th level of the sword domain. The 23rd to 26th levels corresponded to the 5th level of the sword domain. Yi Chun was currently at the early stage of the 5th level of the sword domain. Normally, he could only go up to the 23rd level. However, this was not absolute. The higher the realm of the sword Dao, the more levels one could go through. It was the same for powerful swordsmanship. Yi Chun wanted to see how many levels he could go and whether he could gain anything. After entering the sword world, Yi Chun began to explore. The 1st level, the 15th level, the 20th level, the 23rd level. Soon, Yi Chun reached the 23rd level. There were 23 batches of swordsmen on the 23rd level. Each batch had over 40 people. These swordsmen were comparable to Yi Chun in all aspects. The only differences were their swordsmanship and the realm of the sword Dao. Quickly harvesting batch after batch of swordsmen, Yi Chun passed through the 23rd level and arrived at the 24th level. Soon, he reached the 25th level. Yi Chun discovered that even at the 25th level, he still did not feel much pressure. These swordsmen's swordsmanship was too immature for Yi Chun. The 26th level gave him a slightly pressuring feeling. On the 27th level, Yi Chun brought out 90% of his strength. On the 28th level, Yi Chun felt strained. Chapter 1144. From the 9th floor onwards, the number of swordsmen was maintained at 1,000, and it was the same for the 28th floor. On this floor, the swordsman's sword domain had already surpassed Yi Chun's, reaching the intermediate stage of the 5th level. Every time Yi Chun stabbed out, he would encounter endless resistance and twisting power. After killing 44 swordsmen, Yi Chun was stabbed in the heart and throat by the 45th and 46th swordsmen respectively. Level 28 failed. The influence of the sword domain on one's strength is too great. Yi Chun's sword art was 10 times or even 100 times stronger than the swordsman on the 28th floor, and his sword Dao realm was also much higher than theirs. However, in front of a stronger sword domain, Yi Chun's sword art could only display 1% of its power, which was completely below his standard. In the void outside the sword world, Yi Chun sat cross-legged on the ground while the scenes from before replayed in his mind. 3 days later, Yi Chun entered the sword realm again. Yi Chun quickly arrived at the 28th floor after overcoming all the obstacles along the way. In the sword world, Zhen Yuan couldn't be released, so they could only fight at close range. This made it so that only a dozen or so swordsmen could get close to Yi Chun every time. The others could only stand behind. Ding ding dang dang. Sparks flew everywhere. Yi Chun, who was holding 2 swords in his hands, cast aside all distracting thoughts and focused all his attention on dealing with the swordsmen rushing towards him. The 2 swords in his hands were like twisted rays of light, constantly stabbing the swordsman's body. With the instant sword domain, he could at least hold on for a while, even if the opponent's sword domain was a level higher than his. 45th place, 52nd, 78th place. The 100. After killing a total of 100 swordsmen, Yi Chun was killed by a flurry of swords, doubling his battle record. In the land of nothingness, Yi Chun's comprehension grew deeper and deeper. Millions of sword arts flashed through his mind, and in the end, only the most essential part remained. This part could no longer be called a sword art, but a kind of origin. To be more direct, it was the origin of sword Tao, and the origin of sword Tao was the foundation of sword domain. 155. 198. 242. 299. The third time he came to the 28th level of the sword world, Yi Chen seemed to have the help of the gods as he killed one swordsman after another. When he killed the 299th swordsman, Yi Chen revealed a flaw. This flaw was discovered by the 300th swordsman, who stabbed over with a sword light. It might have been a moment, or it might have been a year. Countless sword cries rang out around Yi Chen. The sword of the 300th swordsman missed its target and brushed past Yi Chen's neck. Puff! Without any hesitation, Yi Chen thrust his sword through the man's heart. 5th level sword domain. Under the boundless pressure, Yi Chen successfully broke through, and his sword domain rose from the early stage of the 5th level to the mid-stage of the 5th level. His comprehension of the laws of the sword had improved a step further, and coupled with the profundities of space, he was like a tiger that had grown wings. Puff, 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 puff. At the same cultivation level, Yi Chen displayed a suppressive aura. If one came, he would kill one, and if two came, he would kill two. There was no one who could withstand a single exchange. The might of his sword technique also started to show. The 999th. The 1000th. Finally, Yi Chen passed through the 28th floor and arrived at the 29th floor. The sword artist of the 29th floor was at the late stage of the 5th level. This time, Yi Chen only managed to kill 9 sword artists before failing. The sword artist of the 29th floor was simply too powerful. Not only did his sword domain surpass Yi Chen's, the disparity in other aspects was also shrinking. He was much stronger than the sword artist of the 28th floor. After a week, Yi Chen's kill count on the 29th floor had increased to 30. His improvement was extremely small, and it would be hard for him to make any more gains in the remaining half of the month. Time to go back. Tearing open the void, Yi Chen returned to the Falling Dust Sword sect. At this moment, many peak forces of Elysium were in a turbulent period. Everyone was fighting for a quota to enter the outside world. Some relied on their connections, and some lustful women. However, the initiator of all this did not care about these trivial matters, as he was enjoying a rare moment of peace. In a luxurious and comfortable bedroom, Yi Chen was lying on the bed with Murong Qingqing in his arms. His left hand went through the latter's armpit, pinching that astonishing softness from time to time. Yi Chen, when did you eat Sister Jing? Murong Qingqing was 1 year older than Su Jing. Ever since Yi Chen left, the two had been calling each other sisters. Aren't you jealous? Yi Chen smiled. If you were an ordinary person, I would be jealous. At their realm, their thinking was not the same as ordinary people. As long as she liked Yi Chen, and Yi Chen liked her, nothing else mattered. On the contrary, she hoped to have a sister to accompany her. After all, Yi Chen was busy with his own matters most of the time, and his goal was to reach the peak of Sword Dao. After a few years, we should have a child. As he spoke, Yi Chen entered Murong Qingqing's body once again. Senior sister, how's the quota for Dragon God's Celestial Palace going? In the palace master's bedroom, Yi Chen walked in with a faint smile. About 70 to 80%. Dragon God's Celestial Palace was the same as Fallen Dust Sword sect, also having a quota of 100,000. Standing up, Su Jing poured a cup of tea for Yi Chen. Putting down the cup, Yi Chen grabbed her hand and made her sit on his lap. Su Jing was somewhat flustered. After struggling a few times, she stopped moving. Her breathing became a bit hurried, and her chest, which was wrapped in white clothes, heaved up and down, looking especially alluring. Lightly hugging Su Jing, Yi Chen pulled her face and kissed her. After a moment, Su Jing went from passive to active. Her hands wrapped around Yi Chen's nape, her eyes closed. The entanglement of tongues clearly couldn't satisfy Yi Chen. Standing up, Yi Chen carried Su Jing to the bed. On this day, the two of them were immersed in passion. On the soft and smooth bed, red plum blossoms dotted the two snow-white figures entangled together, making one's mouth dry and tongue thirsty. The next morning, the passion subsided, and the two embraced. Su Jing's skin was as smooth as silk. Yi Chen couldn't bear to part with it. I suddenly want to see the outside world. Enduring Yi Chen's caress, Su Jing said. Yi Chen smiled and said, "What's so difficult about that? We can go now." Sister Jing. Seeing Su Jing, Murong Qingqing revealed a vague smile. The latter had just become a wife, and the change in her temperament was quite obvious in Murong Qingqing's eyes. Sensing the meaning in Murong Qingqing's gaze, Su Jing's face turned red. "Sister Jing, doing that must be very comfortable, right?" Following behind Yi Chen, Murong Qingqing deliberately teased Su Jing. How could Su Jing be Murong Qingqing's opponent? She stuttered and didn't have the aura of a peerless king. In front, Yi Chen smiled. After passing through the dead end, the three arrived at the real universe. This is the outside world? Murong Qingqing and Su Jing took a deep breath. Here, they could feel the vastness and boundlessness of the universe. The laws of the universe weren't as obvious as in Elysium, but they were more lofty and untouchable by mortals. Apart from that, the space here was too stable, and the spatial ripples were very subtle. With their strength, it was hard for them to capture the pattern of the spatial ripples. Finally, the Zhen Yuan within their bodies started to stir. In Elysium, due to the restrictions of the laws, one could only cultivate to the third layer of life and death realm. After reaching the third layer, one wouldn't be able to break through to the fourth layer even if they cultivated for another 1,000 years. Moreover, there wasn't that much time for them to cultivate. In Elysium, the lifespan of a king was only 1,000 years. However, the universe was different. The moment they passed through the dead end, their lifespan suddenly rose from 1,000 years to 100,000 years, giving them the aura of immortality. 100,000 years, 100 times lifespan. Murong Qingqing sighed. Yi Chen said, "The universe is vast and boundless. 100,000 years is but a blink of an eye for the universe. Only by becoming a true god can one be eternal." A true god transcended the universe and reached a whole new level. Could Elysium be a world created by a true god? Su Jing asked. Yi Chen muttered, "It's quite possible. As far as I know, ninth-layer life and death supremes are far from having the ability to create a small world. I'm afraid only true gods have this ability." How much power was required to create and maintain a small world? Yi Chen couldn't guess, and he couldn't guess, because it was beyond his imagination. At the very least, he would need to become a ninth-layer life and death supremes to see some clues.